And tonight, some real intense Doctor Who debate that will get you behind the sofa as we go live with the Sense channel.
Well, hello and welcome to our Halloween special, to our ghoulish, monstrous, nightmarish Halloween special. We have the big scares, the horror shows of monsters, and if that does not give you the creeps, then possibly my Doctor Who news items later will, with Doctor Who dragged right into the DEI race debate itself. We have Doctor Who stories that broke the mold for good and bad. Rogue clearly broke the mold, as I felt. And we have a Halloween hit list of Doctor Who stories to debate. So we crunch Image of the Fendal against Midnight, that sort of thing, okay? So join us for that. We have some outrageous Doctor Who news, as I was explaining to you. So please stick with us. So on this lovely kind of Halloween special, since it's midweek normally in this case, reminder that we were started and we teed up the monsters on Friday with our Doctor Who detox. There was a lot about hairs and scary stuff there. And then, of course, we had the news about Disney, apparently insiders saying losing Doctor Who subscribers from an aimed 80% subscription rate to about 30%. Is that a big deal or not? Well, of course, on my 20-minute teaser, you get to see that. So if you've not seen it, it's still there. And of course, if you haven't joined our merry band of subscribers, our censor rights, you've still got the chance. Dig it out, press that button and get all the notifications because our army grows. We're only 10 months old and we're doing quite nicely. Thank you, everybody, for your support. Lovely of you to be with us. So, I think it's time to get people on, really, isn't it? Let's have a look. Now, I was just talking to her, and Michelle really should have been on our very first show. She's just had a problem with the throat, so to speak. So, Michelle, good to see you again.
Hello, welcome to be back. I miss you all.
I suppose I should say you are an original panelist. It's just that you didn't quite get on that first show.
Yeah, because I woke up with the galloping case of the flu. No one wanted to see me. Actually, I remember sending you the screenshot from Case of Rtd'S of Is His Death, because that's how I felt.
Yeah, and while we're at it, before I bring anyone on, Michelle Hamilton, I'll give you her full name, Haunted Fredericksburg, on Arcadia, publishers. You've written a book, haven't you? And since this is our Halloween special, can you give us a quick synopsis?
The mystery and the history of Fredericksburg, Virginia. So you can hear all the fun, spooky history, ghost stories from the museum that I work at, the Murray Washington House, and it is available on Amazon in the United States and in the United Kingdom.
There you go. So Michelle's on. She's a busy person. She also has a job. Now, Gary, you found us a bit late.
Good evening.
Well, I know. I didn't ask. The memo wasn't. Maybe my mask is on now. Did you notice? I don't know. So how are you?
Congratulations, Gary? Michelle, by the way. What an accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been selling very well. I've been very blessed.
Good for you. That's fantastic.
It has. It's kind of on the book hit parade, so to speak.
There you go.
And good to see you back, Gary.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Very
talking about all kinds of things. I actually want to ask Michelle, so when are they, who are you going to cast in the movie?
Good question. I don't know. I don't think someone can get my abrasive personality and my unique vocals.
Okay, there we go.
And to make it a quartet tonight, we have, for the first time on Senssphere, but most Doctor Who fans will know him, we've got Neil Cole from the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi. Good to see you, Neil.
Hey.
Hello, and whose face is so hideous on this Halloween special he could not actually be shown.
Right.
So instead, before the horrible accident, a picture of me on the real-time pictures thing, which is, there you go, which I've managed to get working at the last minute. I've seen people before, Brendan, and hello everybody, and Gary and Michelle. It's amazing. I've watched you all for so long. It's just really lovely, lovely to be here. But yes, I've seen people with a little picture on, and I've thought, oh, I wonder why they're doing that. I now know why. Because the camera's knackered.
But maybe we were good at this, Neil, because I know you've got all the props ready, and of course we'll try our best, and we'll get you on again if you're happy to show you Scariest and your Davros. But
yes, I've literally got the Scariest beside me on my right to show you, which is halfway through restoration, and I've got Michael Wish's Davros mask to my left, ready to show you. And it's like, and I'm like now looking at a picture of myself.
Yeah, you see. But yeah, and I know you've tried your best, and I appreciate that. But we'll have you on again, don't worry. But the other thing is, folks, is while you're going, well, it'd be nice to see his museum. He has sent us some video in with little items, since we're talking about monsters and villains and everything. So I will intersperse the program with that, as well as some of the slides and that. So it's a shame because of Neil's preparation that you can't see him now, but you will see quite a lot. Okay, so that's
I do want to say that I do want to.
He's been on Netflix too. He's been on Netflix. Don't forget the Strange Interiors.
Thank you.
I do want to tell Neil that when you mentioned that one prop, you're supposed to say it like the Scariest.
Yeah, you know, like if I had a penny for everyone who comes,
you got to do the.
I always
do the
he's
whisper.
on my kitchen. He's on my kitchen table, and the kitchen's in part of the living room. And when I now look over, it's in the same pose as when it comes out over the Thames. And I was just sometimes I catch myself thinking, I go, wow, that's just mad that the Scariest's there, you know, in that same sort of mad pose. I just need like a corgi Matchbox toy to be pushed past in front of it
as
across
it, like,
the kitchen
as
table.
As it chews the little.
I know, bless it.
Well, let's get into this horror vibe then. And first thing is, last week this time we did our Lonleat special, and of course the joke on our panel seems to be that that's blooming Adric instead of calling it me. But and so of course that was me with my only shot at Lonleat. And then I didn't realize when we were talking about Doctor Who bedrooms and what we were like as kids, everybody pointed out Matthew Waterhouse's posters near my bed, and I said that is just coincidence. I mean, hello. However, Greg Chapman, hope you're well. He has been taking the mick out of us all the time, and here, have a look at this. He does think I look like Adric because he made me into Adric. Oh God!
Can I tell you something? Can I tell you?
Now we'll never know if you were right, Neil.
Can I tell you a little fact there? About 20 yards from where I am now here, not even that, 10 yards, is one of Adric's welly boots from that very spacesuit by your bed. How strange is that?
Oh, from 4 to Doomsday.
You could have stroked it. It could have been on your little table there. You see that little chair, table, stool you've got? You could have had that boot there. He's slouching, and it would have been like he'd taken his boot off and put it beside your bedside.
And look, can I tell the truth? I'd have preferred his welly than actually.
You see, Neil's going to try to make
the boot that he threw up on, or when he was behind the tree during
I was thinking that myself. Yeah. Neil's trying to make us believe that this is just an AI thing. This is actually what he wore last Halloween.
yeah. I mean, this is Halloween. I know this is our Halloween special, and I'm already scaring the punters by showing Brendan apparently dressed as Adric. I mean, you know, that's going to scare them off. But we'll move on. What about, since it is horror, what about some of our actors who have been in the horror shows? So, of course, Lalla Ward, when she got the job as Romana too, everybody said, oh, she was in Vampire Circus. So, of course, just to get us onto that lovely kind of horrific spirit, look at her there. She's vicious. I tell you what, I bet you when she had an argument with Tom Baker later on, she could have looked like that.
There you
My
go.
God. So, yes, Lalla Ward. Why is it that when they have to be a vampire, they always end up being, it's all seduction? I know it's all erotic, isn't it? But
I don't have a problem with that.
I haven't got one of Wendy Padbury doing it, though. That's a snag, Gary.
Well, the only thing we need from Wendy Padbury is the scene from Mind Robber. That's all we needed.
I ration that because I need to get Gary through the show. And of course, The Omen. Who remembers The Omen? And good old
Watched it the other day. Just watched it about 3 days ago with my daughter for the first time, and she loved it. And she actually literally went, "Is that the second Doctor?" And I, yeah, it is. It was great. What a great film.
And
Still a great film.
He didn't regenerate. No.
Yeah.
And now, since we're talking about Troughton, for anybody that hasn't watched it, a terrific Hammer horror movie, I think it was 64, called The Gorgon, where Patrick Troughton plays a police inspector. So if you want to see Troughton in a scary Halloween movie, go find The Gorgon. Peter Cushing's in that. Troughton has a key role as this kind of Germanish inspector who's investigating the deaths and everything. So track that down. That's a good one.
Okay. Has anyone seen this one then? Which is the Vault of Horror with Tom Baker in 73.
Great film.
Now,
that's an anthology, I think.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm not obsessed with horror. I struggle with horror. I did watch some of the Hammer Houses of Horror as a kid, because I think the dare as a kid is you attempt anything to stay up. But I don't kind of normally seek them out. So apart from The Omen, which obviously, I mean, Neil, I don't know how you get through it now. I struggle with The Omen, the original. I really do. I find that.
Oh, I love The Omen.
Tricky.
Yeah. It's a good film. It's like I was saying to my daughter and I were talking about this. It's a good film. It's not just like a horror film, which a lot is schlock. It's a really the score, the cinematography. It's just a damn good movie, and that's why it stands the test. Whereas The Vault of Horror is a cracking little film. It's kind of horror, that one, Brendan. It's safe. Give it a watch. It's one of those sort of almost like an EC comic, but without actually less gore than an EC comic. It's
Tom Baker's in the framing device of the movie, and then in one of the segments.
Okay.
Right? Is that right, Neil?
Yes, yeah, and there's a lovely scene at the end where there's sort of zombie. Oh, actually, it doesn't. I don't think it happens. I think there's a still they did, a publicity still where they're all zombified, and I don't think that, if I'm right, somebody will probably tell me I'm wrong. When they find that they're actually already dead, which no big shocker when you watch it. But there was a scene where they're all made up of zombies, and Tom's got that beard and he's got the sort of skull face, and it looks fantastic. But I think that was too horrific to show. Even though it really wasn't, but there you go.
Oh, well, so hopefully everybody's on edge now. I mean, we can see people. I mean, David's got the Gorgon and gives an excuse to watch it again because Gary's given it a shout out. Omen 1 and 2 are very good. 3, not so much. Is Omen 2 the one when they're under the the person's trapped under the frozen lake?
Yes, and number 3 is Sam Neill and Stephen Braddock. Hello, and I'm with you totally. I think the first 2 films are stunning.
Yeah,
and I remember I got the video disc when I was about 15 of the third film, and it was bitterly disappointing, especially because Sam Neill is like pitch perfect, good in the role, but I don't know where it goes wrong. It just doesn't. It really is the ending. It's a classic. You talk about anti-Christ, anti-climax. And he just sort of pops his clogs on an altar somewhere, and it's done. It's
Well, just in case, horror can get people going, and horror can also freak people out. So I thought I'll do a cheer up first of all. So, we have all these conventions everywhere. I mean, it's how to make your money if you're an actor now. And John Cleese was presented with a police box, which of course reminds us all of the City of Death, that great scene or cameo, we call it, don't we? With Eleanor Bron.
Exquisite.
Absolutely exquisite. I know. It was almost like a university in-joke with Douglas Adams, it seemed to me, to talk about the beauty of the police box and how exquisite it was that it disappeared.
I wish Manuel had been in that scene, though. That would have been good, from Fawlty Towers.
Yes. If he hit him. Now, look, tonight we've got debates about the monsters. We've got, I have to say, let me just kind of call them out so you can all see what's going on here. Right. One of our items is stories that smash the Doctor Who formula. Now, remember, what I mean by that is, in my view, my humble view, Rogue, and I'm trying not to keep on the new series tonight, but you know what I mean? Rogue really broke the mold because the Doctor suddenly was sexual and predatory. But we're going to go back into the classic, toy box and talk about stories that smash the formula, but also some from Capaldi, Matt Smith, etc. So keep an eye on that one. The other thing we're going to do, since it's Halloween, is I've got my Halloween hit list, and I'm pairing off different Doctor Who stories with a horror connection. So I'm going to pitch the Demons versus another story and see what the panel and the thread think, which one is the winner, as in horror. Not nostalgia. It's about which one is the scariest of the two. We've also got the news later. Yeah, Doctor Who's been pulled into the race debate again by 2 actors, not 1, but 2. And there's also an archive link to when Doctor Who was accused of being racist as a programme. And the BBC actually said then that they are colourblind in their casting. Oh, how things have changed. You've got the Fugitive Doctor and Grace piling into that. You've got the Secret Project to kind of, let's speculate for a few minutes. Who's Mrs. Flood? Well, Anita Dobson's been talking again. And then, of course, I haven't heard from Gary and Michelle and Neil about the Disney subs since, so that'll be interesting to hear from them. So we've got a few little tasty items tonight. So I suppose to get us in the mood, Doctor Who mood. Neil, we're going to visit your museum now, okay, with your first choice. So if everybody bears with us, we're going into Allendale, Northumberland. Do visit it. And of course, me and Neil have been talking about the monsters that he's got in his collection. So here we go with the first one.
Hello, Sensephere. This is Neil Cole from the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi in Northumberland. Actually, not too far, I think, from Time Agent Brendan and the Sensephere Control. Anyway, Brendan just sent me a quick message saying he would like anything that I can think of that should have been more deadly and lethal than Doctor Who. And I have got one easily. Now, I haven't unfortunately got a complete one in the museum, but what I do have is a chess piece from one. Now, the museum here is mostly classic series, because I love the classic series and I'm not really in love with the new series. However, I've got a small selection. And this is a Centauran chest from the new series. What can I say? My favourite Doctor Who monster of all time, Lynx and Styre. Styre, I think, tops it in terms of just being a complete vicious gid. New series Centaurans. Wow. Just wow. Chris Ryan's masks, absolutely gorgeous. Millennium FX did a fantastic job on him, but Strax, really? Powder blue for the colour, really? I don't know what to say. I just think I think the Centaurans are one of the biggest letdowns of the new series, in my humble opinion. I think it's nothing to do with the actors. I think the outfits, I always thought, because the Jadoon came along and had that sort of black, sort of dark black look, and they removed the helmets and they were sort of rhinoceros shaped underneath. I wonder if that's why they had to go for a different colour with the Centaurans, because they would have seemed too close. But I think the light blue just does not work for Centaurans. I mean, I get it. I'm not knocking the designers of trying to do something different, and the sculpts are kind of nice, but they are going against what was already a fantastic design. I mean, absolutely amazing design. And I think Centaurans, why would they be coloured? Why would they be blue? They would just get the metal ore of their planet. They have no aesthetic sense. They just want to kill things, destroy things, conquer things. They are the brutes, the football hooligans of Doctor Who. And they were turned into a nurse. Now, the nurse, frankly, I just don't believe that Centauran wouldn't have just shot themselves in the head rather than be a nurse to other species. Just wouldn't have happened. And I just think the Centaurans now lack any threat. Now then, the new series, Rob Alsop, God love him, who's an amazing designer and a classic Doctor Who fan at heart. He did a wonderful job on the new designs for Jodie's story. I haven't actually watched the story because I really had lost off by that point. But the actual designs look good, but I've heard the story-wise possibly softens them yet again with chocolate. Chocolate. Centaurans being beaten by chocolate. The original first 2 Centauran outings, they were the most vicious, potentially great villains ever, and they still remain my favourite Doctor Who monster, but only viewed through the lens of Lynx and Styre. And I think as much as these are beautifully sculpted, as is everything by Millennium FX, is absolutely beautifully done, I think the design level, yeah, blue. Wow, I let it go there, didn't I?
Well, what's what we would like on this
Great.
channel is honesty, obviously. So there's one more little visit later on, folks, to the museum, which is handy considering we've got technical problems anyway. So so Neil will see the Garm and the Zygon, of course. We've got that to come. So we can't see the Scariest, but we'll see a Zygon. So let's get straight into one of our debates. Now, I'm going to throw you in the deep end, all of you, and the thread. So I'm going to get you salivating, I hope. So here's the first one. So this is a Halloween hit list pairing off. And I'm going to ask everybody out of the two, which was the scariest. Not one with the best actors, or you preferred it when Unit were in it, or anything like that. I want to know which one you thought was the best. So here's the first one. It's Blink versus Image of the Fendal. So have a think. Which one is actually, to be quite honest, the one that freaks you out the most, the one that you think is horrific for kids or for yourself? So Blink versus Image of the Fendal. Gary, where would you like to go with this thought process?
I'm gonna go with my nostalgia, and I will say Image of the Fendal, because at the beginning, like in the forest with the hiker, and then later on with the doctor, we don't see what's coming.
Yeah.
We don't see what they see. And the skull, the glowing skull is really scary. And that's just a sentimental favorite.
And you've just seen it recently again, have you?
Oh, I can watch that show. I can watch that story anytime.
Michelle, what are your thoughts initially on Image of the Fendal versus Blink?
For me, it's always been Blink, because I find the Weeping Angels creepy. Just the whole idea that you really can't get away from them, and that you do blink, you're getting sent back in time and no way to get out. So for me, the Weeping Angels are always creepy.
Yeah. Although, as I've seen here, Derelict Hannah says there became a broken record. And this is the problem. One of my debates the other day was about whether you rest program, do remakes, do various things. And of course, sometimes a really good story just needs to be left on its own, and you don't repeat the monster, and you just don't repeat. Please don't.
Yeah.
It was a mistake.
One appearance that was the best portrayal of the Weeping Angels also.
So your thoughts, Neil?
I'm ashamed to say, get ready for this. Okay, I'm going to shake you to the core. I've never sat through Blink. I'm just letting that settle. I'm just settling. But my feeling is, I used to run a Doctor Who club. It's my Doctor Who club at school for years. I'm going to say that probably, in terms of, I would say undoubtedly Blink is one of the highlights that I haven't seen, that I've seen clips of from the new series. And I think though the Angels were a one-off, one-hit wonder, and I think once you put Victorian statues in a space, in an alien planet, it just made no sense at all. And I think it's a classic thing. I could do a whole episode on just things that should never, ever, ever have a sequel. And I think as a one-off, they were brilliant, but I think they've been watered down. Personally, a bit like Divining Dragon said, nostalgically, it's always going to be Fendal. I live in English woodland, not literally. I'm not a man of the woods, you understand, Brendan, But I live very near woods right now. There's an owl hooting over the road. So that hiker through the woods is very, very nostalgic, the cracklings, twigs and all that. And I love all that. Mm-hmm. But I think, certainly children at school and young people who come to the museum, but honestly, Blink is the one they mention a heck of a lot from the younger. So it's a tough one because I'm speaking, I'm not fully informed on that one, but I I'm going to pull out on my I love Fendal, and Blink certainly had an impact without doubt.
Yeah, I mean, Image of the Fendal is one of those that doesn't quite land for me. I've got to be honest, as a Doctor Who fan, I can see they had all the ingredients of a classic harem scarum story for Doctor Who, but it just didn't. For me, as a kid watching it, it just didn't land. And when I watch it again, I'm going, oh yeah, it's got the skull. You've got the kind of the manor, the mansion. You're surrounded by a wood. Oh, it's got it all. But for some reason, it doesn't work.
I agree, Brendan. I agree. I watched it recently. We were deliberately trying to watch spooky Doctor Who stories about a month ago. I put Fendal on, and it's always promised more than it actually gives somehow.
Yeah.
But
It's basically Doctor Who's version of Quatermass in the Pit.
yeah, I love Tom
stories.
Baker saying hello to the cows. That is my favorite.
Oh yeah, hello ladies. Yeah,
yeah, I love that, and it's got little lines like that. But I agree, it's got something which Pyramids of Mars has got something extra. Yeah,
but you see, if you think of some of the ingredients that I listed, that image of the Fendal has that actually should make it work, and it's got Tom Baker as well, and all the rest of it. But actually, Blink also, you've got cellars, you've got graveyards with statues in. I mean, and you've got that horrific idea. I mean, Stephen Moffat, two boys. He said they passed a graveyard. He swears blind he saw a statue with covering their eyes, and since then that's become the thing. And of course, just like he did with the silence, because you forget once you've seen them when they're out of shot, the crack in the wall. Stephen Moffat, Are You My Mummy? That sort of thing. He really knew how to scare kids because he's got kids.
It's hard for me to look at Blink in isolation at this point, because I kind of think about how they kind of ran the concept into the ground later. By the time the Weeping Angels become basically the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters, and with the Statue of Liberty walking down the street, and then by the time of Matt Smith's final episode, they're reduced to hands jutting out of the ground. It's kind of like, just stop.
Yeah, I agree totally. Yeah,
it's such a shame, isn't it? Because we're Doctor Who fans and wider science fiction fans, and as you know, Hollywood loves to do a sequel, etc. We've downstairs just before this, Ghostbusters 2 was being repeated on the TV, and if every program, every movie, if it's successful, they like to repeat. So, Deadly Assassin, brilliant story, The Matrix and everything. We might mention it tonight. But then later on, you've got the Five Doctors, Arc of Infinity, and they never quite touch base the same way, as in regarding The Matrix, regarding the Time Lords. Anyway, so out of those two, let's have the vote now. I saw a few votes in the thread. So, right, we'll go down. Give us a name. Give us Fendal. Give us Blink. I know you've had a discussion, but you've got your final word now. So, Neil, which one?
Got to be Fendal.
It's got to be Fendal. Quick, Gary?
Fendal.
Michelle?
Blink.
So 2-1. And I'm going to say Blink because of what I've just said about Fendal. It doesn't quite do it. But Blink was very good. I wish they'd have it as just a one-off.
Mm-hmm.
So there's our first little kind of Halloween hit list. Should we do one more before we go a bit more tasty? Right. Heather, you were saying, I hope he's going to mention the Demons. I feel as though I'm under orders, and so I better get myself sorted there. So, but what's it going to be matched with? And we can't get all nostalgic going, we love John Pertwee and the Brigadier. We've got to be dead honest here. So we've got the Demons versus Ghostlight, because I'm trying to match up in similar ways. This is kind of
very good.
A supernatural vibe about it. So everybody have a quick think about what you're going to pick on. Image of the Fendal, I thought it had all those scary conventional tricks, but I just didn't think it landed. So in this case, we all love the Demons, all of us of a certain age, but Ghostlight, does that put a cat among the pigeons? Michelle, what would you think instinctively?
I'm going to go the Demons for the folk horror aspect of it. Ghostlight has a good potential being Victorian and dark, which is something I really like from that time period, but it just kind of loses something in translation. So I'm going to go Demons for the folk horror aspect.
Okay, Gary?
This is a very good comparison. Congratulations, Brendan, because, Ghostlight has that element of, the characters of Control and Light, who are basically kind of doing the experiment with evolution. And so there's a lot of good similarities. So my congratulations on the comparison. Again, deferring to sentimental, I have to go with the Demons. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it's the archetypal. I think it's the archetypal unit story. I call the Demons basically what unit does on the weekend, because they're either watching the football match or they're going out in their civvies investigating the what's going on around. So yeah, I'd have to go with Demons.
So Divine and Dragons using my my explanation now. Ghostlight doesn't seem to land in it with in execution. Now, before I come to Neil, remember some of my photographs are from the Facebook photo research group, and I'm determined to show pictures that we don't see much. So we don't normally see on the left there both of those Buck and the demon himself put together. And of course, can you see our Sergeant Benton's having a fag?
That's right.
I mean, is he James Dean? Who does he think he is? So, yes.
And for those in America, that means something completely different.
Well, the Doctor does now. No, so basically, and this is from Crackerjack, but they were using the Demon set. Neil, you can remember Crackerjack, can't you?
Oh yes.
Was that I assume that was a kid's show?
It's 5 o'clock.
It was like
It's
your teacher's hell. Teachers hell. Get all your school into a theatre and let them shout at you. It was the sort of, even as a kid, it was my idea of hell.
Neil, they always ended up being Cubs and Brownies to me.
Cubs and Brownies. Yeah, it was BBC. All right, I'm going to stop there because the BBC. No, right. So all I'm going to say is with this one, this is Tuffy. I think Ghostlight's an interesting experiment. Gothic Mansion. So this is Gothic Mansion trope versus a real power play in Demons, because I love, I run a classic sci-fi music. I love classic sci-fi literature. What you've got here is John Wyndham's Midwich Cuckoos with the barrier around the village.
Yep.
And you've also got with the Demons, you've got Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End with the ancient race that were actually like the devil. So you've got all of that in with the folk horror elements. And also, you've got a village that I now go every year. My family and I, we go every year and have tea at the Blue Boar, which is the devil cloven hoof. And I can't, it's got so many classic tropes. How could you not say the Demons? I mean, Bok's not terribly scary, really, but he's great. Ghostlight has got a heck of an atmosphere to it, a real oppressive atmosphere. But ultimately, it's just got such a lot going for it, the Demons. And it's got those sort of nods to classic SF history, which I love. So it's got to be the Demons.
Okay. Ghostlight, I'm going to be one of those people who say I didn't quite understand what was going on.
It takes like 2 or 3 watches to really get what's going on in Ghostlight.
And in many ways, I think even once I do understand it, I do think if you're going to, the story has to land the first time, because not everybody will give the indulgence of watching it twice, 3, 4 times. Fans do that. Casual viewers don't. So knowing this was the Sylvester McCoy period when we were battling like hell to get the ratings against Coronation Street and that, it needed to land. The other thing was, I wasn't quite sure what was going on. And yet some of the very clever ideas in that script were coming too fast. So it's an execution thing possibly, or it needed more episodes, something like that. So I'm going to obviously balance more towards the Demons as well. Although I think the Demons is 1 episode too long. I will say that. I've got to be honest. I haven't seen anyone disagree with the Demons in the thread. Is there anybody? Is there anybody out there? Anthony Parkinson, yes, it's our moment to say chap with the wings. We've got to, don't we? It's part of law. And of course, did you see the Brigadier? I mean, I know Gary picks up on these. Gary, do you like that picture?
I've never seen that picture before.
I remember when we
is that from the set of the Demons?
Yes.
Wow.
Because I remember when we did one of those photo research, when we did the Doctor Who Gold, and I remember you were really intrigued by some of the jackets they had in another one I showed.
I'm trying to wonder when everything is so oppressively hot and it's a heat barrier, why the Brig's dressed for winter time with that jacket.
Because this is England and it's always cold.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Mind you, he does look like he's kind of, Montgomery or somebody. I mean, he really looks dressed for the part, even though that is not shown on the actual program. I love the model work. I've thrown in a few models, photographs today for obvious reasons. Models and monsters being made, Neil, just for your, delight. But this was a famous one, wasn't it? Because the way they blew that up was fantastic.
Yes. I think I'm just seeing there. Is it David Harding saying that the sets in Ghostlight were so good? And I think he's right. I think the setting was really good, red hot. But I think it was just a little bit too clever for its own good, trying too hard, and I think it left a lot of viewers behind, me included at the time. And the Demons just doesn't do that at all. It's just it's that local English village. It's just
Stephen Braddock's comment in the chat is spot on, where he says Ghostlight actually with the cutscenes added back for the Blu-ray box set, it does kind of complete it and have it make more sense.
Yeah. And we're trying to be fair, but it's a bit of fun as well. I mean, you know, fans always do this mashup sort of thing, but yeah, when you do look at what's out there, you know, if you look at similar ingredients, you know, you think, well, and of course, I've got to be fair. We might all be of a certain age when, of course, a lot of people do like that kind of that darker era of Sylvester McCoy. The sets are great. I mean,
you're picking good stories for comparison.
I saw David Harding talk about Control. Control's voice really throws me for a loop. It's an interesting choice for an actor to make. Yeah, I know. She'd been in that.
Big Deal.
Big Deal. That was it. Oh, I used to love
Bobby
Big
G
Deal.
soundtrack. Bobby G soundtrack. I had the single.
I've got the single. Isn't that mad? We used to buy singles and tunes.
I wouldn't sing it now for you, but I can hear it in my head right now.
Yeah, it's quite atmospheric. Ghostlight is
Bucks
certainly
Fizz
worth
without
a
the
rewatch.
fizz.
Do you know? And it only took me till the last show. And there's me, a Middlesbrough fan, and Mad Macam, as I used to call him. He's a Macam, which means it's the Macams and the Tackhams, which is Sunderland and Newcastle. It goes back to shipbuilding. We make him and we tack him. So basically, he's a Macam, and I keep saying Macam as if I'm some sort of idiot. So Mad Macam. It's worth a rewatch. Anyway, good to see you, Middlesbrough Drew. What the hell's going on? So I think Ghostlight lost, but of course, sometimes you might say, is it the demographics of who's on? But I'm going to be fair. But I think the Demons is a hell of a favourite. Devil's End, going back there. We all love that one. Now, Neil, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Always ready.
Your museum. We were talking about... Now, somebody on my stream the other day were talking about the Garms, scared them as a kid. And I kind of had to do a double take. Shall we start with the Garms?
Quite a nervous disposition, that child, bless them. Bear in mind, I've had Stephen Gallagher here he visits a few times, and he likes the Garm. We've chatted a lot about the Garm.
It might be Cuclud. I'm trying to think if it was Cuclud. I'm trying to remember. But anyway, he'll tell me because he's in the thread now. So basically, everybody, we've got 3 minutes more in the actual Neil Cole Sci-Fi Museum. Here we go.
And here, in the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi in Northumberland, especially for the Sensphere, is an appearance by the Garm. Yes, this is the original Garm, and Time Agent Brendan asked me if I could relay to him some monsters that should have been more scary. And I guess the Garm is absolutely in that category. Now, the Garm is an interesting piece. I know Stephen Gallagher, and he's visited the museum and visited the Garm, and he absolutely did not write the Garm to appear like this. And I have a terrible soft spot for this costume. I helped restore this costume. I've repaired it over the years. But he basically wanted a wolf in the dark, glowing red eyes. It was meant to be terrifying. The guardian of hell, you know, Hades sort of thing. But what we got was effectively a design copied from a children's monster costume making book. It's literally is a copy from that. And I actually love it, and I love Terminus. I think Terminus is terribly underrated. So we've got some really good ideas in it. But there you go. I think the Garm has to be a monster that should have been probably more scary. And I think just by lighting it differently could have. But I think, oh gosh, I just love the Garm. I hate criticising him because I just think he's lovely. But, you know, I can see why people, you know, and including Stephen Gallagher himself, thought that he should have been a lot more scary. Calling Time Agent Brendan and the Sensphere. This is Neil Collin, Museum of Classic Sci-Fi once again. And again, calling from Time Agent Brendan's request for monsters that should have been more scary and terrifying. This bad boy here. The first Zygon appearance. This is Broton, the restored Broton costume that you can see in the museum. But bottom line, the original Zygons were absolutely terrifying. Really sinister. They come back in the new series. And they have comedy teeth. They've all got sharp teeth. And those teeth mean that instead of being able to speak, that's silly. They were nice and whispery because they weren't brutes. In the original, they were shapeshifters, cunning, intelligent, with an amazing design and a really spooky, haunting face. The new ones look like sort of like action figures, over muscly. These are just having, actually got one of the original costumes here that I see pretty much every day. This is wonderful, and I just think that they just sort of became. Isn't there an episode? Because I don't watch the new series, Tony. Isn't there an episode where they seem to be charging around a field outside, and they just look ridiculous? And you compare that to the nurse in the original, where the nurse is wounded. She's been shot by the unit troopers, and the music is just haunting and scary and spooky. Anyway, so in terms of the new series, again, MFX always sculpt incredibly. I mean, incredibly. But you just can't beat this design. It's just perfect first time. And I guess it's hard coming up with a design that's better, but I think a lot of the problem with some of these stories is in the scripts. They sort of make them more silly, sort of Scooby-Doo. The Zygons in the new show, I just feel like they're Scooby-Doo Zygons, And they miss as well. They've got the original has this wonderful fetus seahorse silhouette.
Yep.
And instead, the new ones just look like a turd, like a turd emoji. It just looks like a Mr. Whippy ice cream just gone. And these ones just have a sort of grace and sinisterness. So that's number 2. And hey, I don't mean to just denounce the people who made the new ones. They are really cool. I just think they're just not the calm, cunning Zygons that we first got.
I just got to say real quick, Neil, this is all absolutely spectacular. If I didn't live on the wrong side of the pond, I would be over knocking on your door tomorrow.
Well,
for
listen,
a
Gary,
tour.
this is a serious offer, Gary. If you ever get over to the UK, come up for the weekend and come and stay over, and we'll have a meal.
Oh, thank you. No, I may
Scotland.
take you up on that. I agree with every single thing you said about both the Zygons and the Garm. I think that you were talking about just the Zygons. I don't think there's a single classic monster, a single one that I can think of that's been done better in the new series.
I think it's really difficult. The Zygons are one of those ones that they hit out the park straight away.
Yeah.
And
it was the Zygon. I mean, that's one of the great jump scare scenes.
Yeah.
Is that last quick scene where we first see the Zygon with Sarah.
And if you notice, one of the things what about monsters that I've always said is, if you think about Geiger's Alien, which I think is the ultimate movie monster for me, the original 1979 Alien, if you look at his teeth, it's got human incisors. And when you put spiky teeth into a monster suit, it makes them look comical, And the actual xenomorph has got human incisors, and it gives it that skull-like look. And the original Zygons, actually, you don't see their teeth. And that jump scare you're talking about, it's that open, hollow mouth.
Yeah.
And they're quiet. They're not lumping, brutish things. They're just cunning. And I think that scene in the woodland, where she's bleeding, and it's just dark and it's scary, and I just think it's they got it. I just think they are Scooby-Dooed. It's like charging silly monsters, slavering, and it's just my head in.
I think the one of the big problems, I don't want to get too off topic from what Brendan's talking about. I think one of the things in comparing classic monsters to their new series version, I think they take pains in New Who to kind of like de-scarify the monsters, to make them less kind of terrifying. I mean, to make them still, kind of like agreeably scary rather than what they were in the classic series. But since you mentioned Alien, nothing will ever convince me that Ridley Scott didn't lift the idea from Alien from Ark in Space. I will never not believe that. One last thing about the Garm. I actually think Terminus is a very underrated story. I think that if they would have had glowing red eyes for the Garm, that would have been great. Terminus, the Target novel of Terminus, is one of the best Target novels.
I've talked to Stephen Gallagher a lot. I mean, Stephen has supported the museum. He doesn't live too far away, actually. And he told me in depth about the Garm and Terminus. And he always says, when he's at a bar and there's Doctor Who fans around, they're always going, Warriors Gate, Warriors Gate. And he said, every so often, one person in 100 will say, oh, Terminus is good. And he said, it warms his heart. And I think it's a super little show. I think the veneer armor looks fab, and the
Mhm.
garm itself was as I say, it literally came from a children's book. I've got photos of it. I'm sorry I haven't got them here.
All right. I mean, we certainly we've got items here that are actually in there, but just before I forget where we are with the thread.
Yes,
as
sorry,
well.
Brendan.
No, Rtd'S Travels. I mean, he asks a question here. I've been to your museum twice, but I suppose it's a one sentence answer. How big is the exhibition, Neil?
It's 3 small rooms in a Georgian cellar. And it's got more items in. It's got over 300 items in there. It's got probably more props and costumes in now than the larger exhibitions, bizarrely.
And the truth is, I mean, it's a big old house, so basically, it's a hell of a big cellar, and you go up and down. It's like a maze, and you've got them in decades almost, haven't you?
Can you see the chap on screen now? The chap on screen now visited me about 3 months ago. That is Bob Richardson. He created the original Blackpool exhibition in '74. And he knew that I visited that exhibition in '75 when I was 5. And he knew that I built this museum absolutely inspired by that. And this chap turns up and he said, I hear you built the museum and you liked what I did in the '70s. And it was days we had the best morning. And he told me all the props, where they'd been. You remembered this one, that one. And that morning was just to have that man.
Of course.
It was amazing. Absolutely.
It looks amazing.
I mean, and just before we move on, because we're going to talk about the monsters that have scared you over time as a nice little item. And now the mummy on the right, of course, that those service robots was scary, how they killed somebody, but just that kind of quiet menace. On the left there, it's just gone out of my head, but on the left at the bottom there, I know we've got the big destroyer, of course, it's a great mask. But what's the funny mouth?
Oh no, this is a great piece. Now, guys, if you want an original art print of this very monster, I will let you know soon how to get one, because Mike Tucker designed that creature. That is the Hemivore version 1.
Yes.
And it basically looks a lot like the Fluke Man from the X-Files, another great show, the X-Files episodes. And it was it was deemed as too rude by Nathan Turner. I think it's very Clive Barker. It's very Cenobite-like at the time. Bear in mind, of 1890, it had Hellraiser out. And it's a plaster bust. It's a remarkable piece, which I've repaired a few times. But Mike Tucker very kindly has basically given some prints that he's going to sell through the museum of his original artwork for that. And they're fabulous. It's a really creepy, nasty looking thing. And it's funny because I think Stephen Mansfield, who I also know, Stephen's designs were fantastic. And I think they really work very well. But I think that's a scary looking swine. Well, it's like a leech. It's a horrible looking thing.
Well, when I asked everybody about what scared them, I mean, that's all we can go on. Michelle, you mentioned the Macra, so I can do a double link here to the actual Macra beast. You can tell us what freaked you out about it, and I can also dovetail a book that Neil Cole's got out. So first of all, Michelle, if you talk about the Macra.
Hey!
Yes, the Macra Terror, and I think in the animated reconstruction, it works best when you watch it black and white, because it gets the feeling of the original feeling of the terror, and the visuals of it reminds you of like a universal horror film, which works best in black and white. I watched it through Tubi, which is a free source, and so most of the episodes were black and white, and then the last episode, somehow they showed the color version of it, and the earlier episodes in the black and white are so much more scarier.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because you just really don't know what you're going to see. You see these little claw things. You really don't know what they are and then how they revealed it at the end. And it's because they didn't have a huge budget, but they used the atmospherics of it. And so it's a really creepy story. It's one of those things I wish we had the full tape version. We didn't lose it. And I just found it for, there was, condemning early Hugh. I found it as really creepy, a really good episode, and really, hide behind the sofa.
I always think sometimes, this is when we were talking about this the other day about Doctor Who. Sometimes I really do miss those episode 1s because actually not showing the whole monster not showing everything. It's
Yeah.
it's letting the child's imagination run riot. It shows a claw, shows the sound
Yeah.
effect. The Zygons were good. The Zygons, I said the other day, were one of those. I think it was in our detox hour. I said actually the reveal of the Zygons didn't let you down, but actually so many times in Doctor Who, part 1 you see a hand or you see an eye or you hear the voice, and part 2 you go, oh, didn't quite land. Now, just before we get to Neil, because obviously he's obviously
Or you're just seeing their eyes when they're out in the abandoned part of the colony, and all you're seeing is these glowing little eyes.
It's a lovely story, Michelle. I agree. It's a fabulous, and the animation, I think it's one of the best of the animated reconstructions. I drew that one in the biro there. That's my big biro drawing, but I adore those, the Macron. I think it's a lovely story. I do. I think it's cracking.
So just while we're at it, because we're in the right spot, Neil, if you can just briefly tell us why I'm showing you this, because obviously you've published.
Yes. That is an early, actually, that's not a finished page. I've just realized I haven't got the page numbers on. Yes, I've done a book called Belongs in a Museum. It's a big coffee table thing. It's a high quality soft cover. I've nearly sold out, actually. We did, but it's basically the Antiques Roadshow, which is a show in the UK for those of you over the water, where people find objects, random objects. And what I did was I set myself the task of finding one object for each of Patrick Troughton's stories, a couple of which are in the museum, but I threw it open to collectors from all over the world, and I had an incredible array of objects. So I then did a drawing for each of the stories, talked about an element of the production, and then in the back of the book, I put in like a museum section where people basically, it's photographs of objects. So it's like a little mini museum in a book, and it's been a great project.
I've got a few pages. I will show everybody if you stick with us. It's just I'm getting the right positioning. Obviously, Michelle had mentioned the macro, so I thought I can show Neil's pages and sample, and there's the name of the book, and of course, so his museum. There's his second book, so to speak, because you've got
it's a book that I was, in short, I was trying to make a book that wasn't just like what your standard BBC book is, because it's like, if you're buying a book about Patrick Troughton now, you know the stories. So it's not an episode guide, because I get fed up with books that are sort of tell me about, like there was one called The Monster Vault, which is a lovely book, but I looked so forward to it, but it was just telling me about the monster stories. Well, we know those. So with this, it's looking at an element of the production. There's everything. Yeah, sorry.
So it's because I want to dovetail. We had Daryl Joyce on recently, and he went down the storm as well, because everybody's got versions of how you do things, and you can see here, for example. So everybody on what scares you, remember, we're sticking to the Halloween script. On the left, you've got Daryl Joyce's kind of version of how the Golden Axon should be presented. And on the right, you've obviously got Neil Cole's version from that book.
Neil, that is absolutely incredible.
Thank you, Gary. That is drawn with a biro. And by the way, if anybody wants a picture commission, from the new book, what I do is people pay me for one of the book illustrations that goes in the book, and I'm not too expensive. I'm not trying to. Bottom line is, it's just lovely for people to interact. And so the book, every picture in the book now is with somebody somewhere in the world, which is quite nice. It's the actual original artwork. Because I just draw in biro, and I don't actually use any technology at all, other than when I put the book together. But I just love reimagining the monsters. Daryl's work is absolutely gorgeous. But there's a good page. That was an amazing piece. Look, I mean, that was the surviving cyber controller costume, which Matt Doe very kindly gave you these pictures. What was lovely was I threw open the book. I just said, look, people, if you would like, could share these objects instead of them staying in a room where no one can see them. Share them, because then we can see what's out there, and it's sort of like, so it's a history book, really. Hopefully I've avoided writing too many dates and minutiae, like Patrick Troughton left for a tiddle break at 10 a.m. in TC3 on August whatever, because I've got autism. I've got autism, and I get very bogged down with that sort of stuff. So I've tried to keep it readable. It's not just like you know what I mean?
You see, what's fascinating is, we know what we know as Doctor Who fans about what things look like and everything, but on the right, just to see, we know it's a kind of, it's a little plastic ball, but it's actually the claw that I love the claw. I love that kind of focus on that.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I know.
It's
I must mention Connor.
Oh, there you go.
And Connor, he supports the museum for years. And again, in my research, I found out that there is, and this is the sad thing, right? Somewhere there is a surviving Quark head. Now the problem is, it'll be basically in someone's room somewhere. right? And it's sad. It's sad. It's like, this is the point of my museum. It's like you can all year round. I wanted it to be the Blackpool again, where you go and all year round, you know, you can come and see original pieces. But the thing with the Quark was that was one of the Connor Hart made that Quark on the right, and he's incredibly talented prop maker. And I said, right, that is the only place you're going to get to see a Quark, is if you visit Carnival of Monsters, which is Connor's tours events. But the pictures on the left were sent by Mike Tucker, and I'm trying to think, Richard Lever, and they were basically, they are from 1978, I believe, at one of the DISMAL conventions. Nicely, because they're the same thing taken by two people independently from all those years ago. And it's just trying to bring together all these resources.
Can I just throw something in? Because obviously we're talking about monsters tonight and what scares you, and what the stories that break the mold, and we've also got some heavy news items. But I just want to throw this in. When we did the Lonleat item last week, I never went in the auction tent. But what mortified me is in 1983 they were selling props like this, and all I'm going to say to you now, it's only one quick question though, Neil, because I know you restore, etc. But honestly, all this gear was going, and when I saw the prices, it wasn't bad. The Tom Baker brown suede coat went for 310 there. The Cyber Leader helmet from Tomb of the Cybermen for 240 quid. The whole complete Tomb of the Cybermen costume for 200 quid. Now, I'll go down that list. 60 quid for the Nymon head. And it just goes on. When you see that, everybody, and we've got Neil Cole, who was a monster restorer, can you just tell me how inflated that... Have you, number one, the prices have gone crazy, I'm sure. But the other thing is, while we're on it, Neil, is have you heard about any of these props being around and about?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of them in here now, but basically I've been very, very lucky that I got in before the dealership sort of market began, which has made it more like an art market. And it's put the, huge markups on things. And it's gone ridiculous. I mean, it has. And I couldn't afford to start this museum off now if I was starting from scratch. Simple as that, because I'm not a millionaire.
I see what I want. I would buy the giant clam from Genesis of the Daleks. That's what I'd want.
I'll tell you what I've got. Definitely, I've got one of the Ark in Space costumes is in here. That was, again, donated by one of my museum followers who died, bless him, lovely chap. And he donated his Ark in Space costume, which is actually Dune's costume. He's the one who gets munched at the start. You just get a glimpse that the wearing little arm, bless it, opens the pod door and the Swarfy goes around the camera lens and it kills. And I've got that costume in here. So it's insane.
If they'd been auctioning off a Sea Devil, I know for a fact Brendan would have been there bidding whatever it took to get a Sea Devil.
I've got one thing to say on Sea Devils, and I'll keep this quick, Brendan. Basically, I have an arm in here from one of the costumes. I think there's about 6 or 8 costumes. I can't remember made. Basically, there are 2 arms and 2 heads in survival. I got one negative review on Google and TripAdvisor from a chap who came in and went, "This museum is silly because it's got an arm of this, a foot in this." And what I felt like, I wish I could have just shook him and said, "That's because you muppet, that's all that is left are 2 arms, 2 heads. And I'm very lucky to have an arm. Thank you very much."
Yes. But when you see on Timey-Wimey and you see, God, who had money in 1983 to buy these props, and you just think, as you say, before the dealer market and before inflation, because they know everybody's interested, my God. But let's mix it up again. Right, are you ready for another Halloween pairing? Here we go. So this one is going to be State of Decay versus the Vampires of Venice.
Easy.
So I've got to be fair, you see, because people say sometimes, you're a classic Who fan, you Noble. You're always pick on a certain one. So, Michelle, out of those 2, thinking fast, State of Decay, which is the scariest, do you think?
State of Decay.
And why?
Just the atmosphere, the faux medieval era feeling of it. I just Vampires of Venice just doesn't hit it for me. It's just not my cup of tea.
Okay, I'm remembering because I was still doing audio tapes here. This is when I did audio recording. It was that season, starting with actually before Leisure Hive. It was the season before. It's Destiny of the Daleks. So when we got to State of Decay, I remember. I think it was part 4. I loved the sound of the heartbeat, and I loved the sound of Tom Baker's doctor telling us the story of vampires and their history with the Time Lords. Absolutely loved it. It was so atmospheric. But I think it's that bit that actually I remember the most about it and thought was most kind of visceral, was the storytelling of what these vampires in the universe were like. Gary's nodding away there.
I'm thinking of the bow ships, the
Yeah.
Gallifreyan bow ships.
So Gary, your thoughts on these two?
Absolutely, State of Decay. It's a Hammer vampire movie done on Doctor Who.
Anything ingredient wise on the scares and that? I mean, because look at that set. It's
I
not
think the fact that the blood because the king vampire, the beating heart, is under the castle.
Yeah.
Right. And so that is left to our imagination, which is always more terrifying.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's very subtle. It's not in your face. It's better for being subtle. And as you said, the scene where he's talking about, in the incredible Tom Baker voice about the bow ships and the legends and everything. And it's a case of, not realizing the depth of the horror until well into the story, which always makes it better.
Yeah.
It's just great.
What shocks me, though, is, in a way, when you look back over the 7 years of Tom Baker, particularly, apart from the beginning of Deadly Assassin, and there's another story that people remind me, you could have used his voice so much better over those 7 years. And so I just remember, because I was audio taping it, that moment when he tells a story, you think they should have done that more with the Fourth Doctor, because you've got somebody with a good voice. It's the same with Patrick Troughton. Great voice. Neil, these models, look at these. My God.
Well, this is an easy one for me. Season 18 is one of my favorite seasons. It's a sort of a curate's egg of a season with some people. I love it, and I think it's a season of big ideas, and that is what the new season is. It's the polar opposite. It's the polar opposite. And Vampires of in short, Vampires of Venice I did watch, and my lasting impression is Rory and Amy bickering and toothy women. That's it. Silly teeth, toothy women. That's all. Whereas State of Decay, with a minuscule budget, has these huge concepts, massive concepts, and it has an atmosphere. I love the synth music at the time, and even though it's clearly the sets are the throne room set's lovely, and I just think that the way that the crew have landed on this planet and they've evolved, and that it's the same crew, it's brilliant. It's absolutely a brilliant story. You can argue about the effects, but really, it's a great story.
I'd forgotten about. Well, I love the genius of the rocket idea.
Yeah, fantastic.
But I forgot about this in Vampires of Venice. I mean, you're the monster man. Look at this.
What the hell is that? It's like a tadpole, isn't it?
Well, I
sorry, I'm not. I don't mean to be horrible. It's a well rendered, It
He looks like the general.
I can't even remember that. I just remember the real monster in that story was Amy whinging. He
looks like the general. What's his name? Yeah. He's in Return of the Jedi. The general.
Yes.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. He looks like that. Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun. It's a fun monster. You're right. It's out the cantina in Star Wars, isn't it?
It would work in Aquaman.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think you see like those pictures there, the silly teeth. We've got silly teeth again. Them. It's just silly. Yeah. It's Scooby Doo.
I mean,
Scooby Doo about State of Decay.
State of Decay. The thing is, you've also got to remember great model effects. Great idea. I mean, it's genius. This is classic Doctor Who, where they take a sci-fi, it's generally sci-fi, but then they do a kind of sci-fi fantasy thing. I suppose you could fire a rocket up and then make him come down again and spear the heart of the vampire. I suppose, it makes sense to me.
State of Decay is proper science fiction. It's like what Doctor Who does at its best.
Doesn't it remind you? Doesn't it remind you that RTD knows this, and that's why he did it with a Goblin King, that the steeple of the church speared the Goblin. It's the same idea again.
Vampire stories.
Except there's no foundation for those whatever those damn things were. There's no foundation for them existing. This is a rooted culture. It makes sense. It's totally thought through. The concept.
Vampire stories depend on atmosphere, and State of Decay has the time and takes the time to set up the atmosphere. Vampires of Venice just doesn't have the time to set up the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what kills RTD's idea for a Doctor Who kills it, because he's not got enough time to either world build.
Also, Venice is too sunny for vampires. They need to be in a dark area. Mediterranean, you know, they're going to burn. And the water reflecting. That's going to send, you know.
Yeah,
but also
vampires,
the whole Rory and Amy period Doctor Who does
look at those costumes. Look at those costumes, man.
It's great.
The whole Rory Amy's soap opera, that doesn't age well.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah,
so
they're not
it looks
I think
like
really hampers the Matt Smith era is those two, and they were kept for so long.
Well, it looks like.
Let's not forget. Vampires of Venice is the only vampire story that starts with a bachelor party.
Does it really? Yeah. I just that's all in my memory of that is awful vampires and those two bickering, and I couldn't stand it.
I mean, one of the things when we look at these pairings is actually I'm looking at the ingredients and thinking, how come the execution I mean, State of Decay isn't seen as a Tom Baker classic. I don't think I've heard any Doctor Who fans saying, oh, it's a classic. So I'm trying to play fair. The Vampires of Venice is New Who, and of course, I've watched it, but, you know, it's in the back of my head, so to speak, but I'm trying to play fair. You had the bats and everything, the classic ideas in State of Decay. Like I said, I think the plot idea by Terrance Dicks is clever. The Vampires of Venice, I get all blurred with the fact that, you know, production value is great, and they've managed to, you know, make some part of Croatia look like Venice. Well done, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, in essence, a bit like what Neil's saying is, are you there to scare the kids or is it something else? And great actors in it, blah, blah, blah. But I just don't think it kind of landed again. And this is part of the problem with some of Doctor Who sometimes, especially when we have to do these pairings. Now, I'm going to talk fast and get us to the next big thing, folks. Now, I said at the beginning of the show, folks, that for every rogue, which was a bad version of breaking the mold in Doctor Who, you know, Doctor Who has a certain set formula. It has a DNA to it, which obviously a good writer should break the rules sometimes. We all agree with that. Obviously, when you break it and do something horrific, then we'll be there to criticize. That's the classic fan. So, let's, for a few minutes, let's just start our opening gambit from everybody. Stories in Doctor Who that smash the formula for good or bad. I'm not going to lead our panelists on the thread. Obviously, I've said Rogue a few times now. I just think Rogue, oh my God, talk about breaking the formula in a bad way and changing the whole character of the Doctor. And I'll park those comments there. But you get the point I'm asking everybody. Can you think of a Doctor Who story that broke the DNA of how Doctor Who's presented and it worked and or didn't? Gary, where would you like to start?
You want me just to come up with one? You want me just one of mine?
Give us a couple and I'll play
around.
a
couple. I'll do one that worked, one that didn't. One that worked, Deadly Assassin. Obviously, the first story totally set on Gallifrey, exploding a lot of the myths about the Time Lords that had been created by the quick scenes we saw them in War Games and Colony in Space. And of course, you know, it created a firestorm of controversy and fandom. But over time, it basically was the template for after that since 1977. And very controversially bringing up the Master as this decayed, but I think after Delgado, the most impressive Master, just this decayed body, you know, very kind of gothic. You know, of course, the whole episode set in the Matrix, which is something that, you know, had never been depicted on Doctor Who before, with the clown and the train and all of that. Just an amazing, amazing story. Not well regarded at the time, but now an undisputed classic. So that's the time they really broke them. And he was without a companion
Yeah.
for the first time in the series. So another mold breaker. And again, so I think that's just one that worked. One that didn't, I would say, I don't have as much to say about it, but broke the mold and didn't work was the Capaldi episode Sleep No More, which was the found footage episode, which was done with just, the whole thing was just, video of what the cameras around the complex were capturing. There was no opening titles to the story. That broke the mold. It just kind of leaped right into it. The ending was unresolved. I think they had initially, at the time, Mark Gatiss had planned a sequel to follow up, but that never materialized. So I think stylistically, this was, one of the biggest mold breakers of New Who. I don't really think it worked. I mean, it was a clever idea, which I don't think worked in actuality. So there's one good, one bad from me.
Okay, then. I mean, I'm bringing in the threads quietly at the moment, so I'm apologetic about that. I'm not reading too many out, but yeah, Stephen Braddock agrees with you. The Deadly Assassin, the first one without a companion.
Mm-hmm.
Heaven Sent did a similar thing, of course. I liked it for a different reason, but you wouldn't want to watch it a lot, I don't think. I mean, Heaven Sent I love, and I know Michelle will come in on that later when we talk about other things, but Heaven Sent is one that you say is clever. Love the music, The Shepherd's Boy, but I wouldn't watch it as many times as I'd watch The Deadly Assassin. On the companion front, Crimpling de Bloom, good to see you. The Mind Robber, I suppose, is out there. I need to look at that another time. I haven't seen it for a long time. I've read the book again, but yeah. Lee Smith, of course, the movie that broke the mold, I dare say, for lots of reasons. We won't mention the kiss. Left-Handed Jedi, Genesis of the Daleks. Well, an origin story. We don't want any more of them now, but yes. Davros, when he was actually struggling to walk, shall we say, and that's now off-piste. Just Matt says Underworld. Do you mean with all the CSR and all the rest of it? And they were trying very hard. Let's have a look. David Harding, Spearhead from Space, Stuck on Earth, Unit. Yep. Well, yep. They tried something different, and it did work for a while, didn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, it was
a soft reboot.
Yeah,
for the show.
The Time Meddler says Crimpling was the first pseudo-historical, not counting the Daleks on the Mary Celeste and the yeah. They worked out. You don't necessarily have to go heavy. Yeah, just do light touch.
And in honor of Halloween, Underworld is also the only episode of Filming Doctor Who where the crew claims they saw a ghost.
Oh, okay. And Sleep No More, Paul Richards is referring to what you were talking about there, Gary, was experimental but creepy in places.
It was.
Yeah. I mean, you can see what they're trying to do. I know Mad Man in a Box, The Three Doctors. Yeah, we all love a multi-doctor story, probably because of the Three Doctors. It was clever that Bob Fisher and what's the other name? It's gone out of my head. God, yeah. Yes. Bob Baker and Dave Martin, clever to come up with the genius. I mean, whoever came up with the genius of having the regeneration from Hartnell to Troughton, clever, number one, televisually, and secondly, to then be able to plot out in a narrative how the Doctors get to meet each other. Clever stuff, and we've all been lucky because of that ever since. William Orlock, good to see you. What Moffat and Chibnall introduced led ultimately to the worst. I know, and like I said, that's what I mean, William. For every good mold breaking, and you go, phew, I love that. One mold breaking for the bad, and do you wreck a whole show? Or can it be retrieved? It's one of those interesting ones, isn't it? War Machine, says Stephen Braddock, because it was the first contemporary Earth story. Yep, I get you thinking. Horror Fan Rock. I mean, I think that's a go-to for many people. Now, Lee Smith is saying what we never predicted you would say. No, The Timeless Children. Yes, not much mentioned tonight. Caves of Androzani, says Mad Mackham. Because some people do talk about the end of part 3 being where the regeneration kind of starts or something. You know, it's like
that is true.
Yeah. So I mean, it
It's
is
also one of the best regeneration stories, and they haven't.
Yeah.
And also the last true classic regeneration story.
Yeah. So as I'm going to come to Neil in a minute with his choice, but one of mine on mold breaking, and you've already mentioned the Deadly Assassin, so I won't do that again.
Oh, sorry.
No, I mean I knew you'd pick that. was Edge of Destruction, because you had at the very start just about. Oh, I mean, look at them. I can't help it. Sorry, these pictures sometimes. The Edge of Destruction, a little two-parter, for whatever reason being put there, but it gave us scope and time to reflect as viewers. And I know I wasn't there at the time, but I can see their thinking to kind of get to know the crew, get to know the TARDIS, and then be brave enough to actually, subvert that. And of course, we all know the scene where, with some scissors in hand, Susan's not hot to trot. So, Edge of Destruction. And we all know stories since where basically, you trap them in the TARDIS again, or you try and focus a bit more on the TARDIS. I never quite think they've managed to do it since. It landed so well. It was good timing. So I think the Edge of Destruction, a good old companion story in the TARDIS, quite psychological, and not too long either. They kind of knew what they were doing. So, Neil, while I've had us on the panel talking about this, have you got any thoughts on a story that smashed the formula for good or bad?
Yeah, well, I think I've got a couple. Very quickly, I'll keep them brief. I think Spearhead from Space absolutely is a cracker. It was a soft reboot, but it worked tremendously well without destroying canon. It did it without. It was just a positive step. That way we won. I think Genesis of the Daleks actually reinvented the Daleks, and at that point it was stunning. I think Genesis of the Daleks, Davros, the original, and is a remarkable piece of work. And then the other one I'm going to make, which is a bit of a probably less popular, but I remember watching this and this being massively a huge impact, was the Leisure Hive, because suddenly in season 18 we'd gone from the silliness, we were back to sci-fi good and proper. Now I know it's a divisive season, but I loved it. I at the time, the new title sequence, the more somber look of the Doctor, and the stories, and I think for 3 years definitely, season 18, 19, 20, we were back to science fiction with we got some good monsters like the Pteroleptors, and we had the reinvention of the Cybermen. And again, I think they were never as good as when they were reintroduced in Earthshock. But Earthshock still, I mean, at the time, you can look at it now, but at the time it was a head explosion. I mean, it really put them on the map. And then it sort of finished that era, I think, with the Five Doctors, which was like a wonderful panto effort. But it was just a great little show. And I think that first bit of JNT, I think if he'd left at that point, we would all have said he's one of the best producers. He's done one of the best jobs ever. I think it's only because, unfortunately, I think he'd done his job. And I think this takes us on to later things, but he did his job. That was the time to leave the game, because it was a great reinvention of the show.
And talking about later things, we've still got the news coming up, and my God, just you look at the top of that list. Doctor Who dragged into the race debate and DEI all over it because of a couple of actors and what they've said. And I've got a brilliant archive. You need to hang around for it, because Doctor Who as a program under Matt Smith was accused of being a racist program by a writer. And we'll be all over that like a rash. But Retro Doc, Gary, you did quite a list there.
I'll just give me like 10 seconds to do a couple. Paul Richards just mentioned one of mine in the chat, which was Web Planet.
There it is.
At that time, it was the only story where the main characters are the only humanoid characters in the story. And I've always admired Web Planet. I mean, it just speaks to the amazing ambition of the creators back then, where anything was possible. They just needed to try it. I picked Inferno, my personal all-time favorite Doctor Who story, because I think it's probably the most relentlessly downbeat story.
Brilliant. Genius.
In the show's history. I think it's the only story where the Doctor loses, where despite his best efforts, an entire world gets destroyed, and we see it happen. I also picked Seeds of Doom, because to me, Seeds of Doom is more of John Steed, Emma Peel Avengers episode than it is a Doctor Who, because he's running around punching chauffeurs and jumping through skylights and very violent and combative. And one of the supporting characters is this sociopathic killer who actually undergoes some Scorby right there, who undergoes some character growth. So it's a story that maybe my second all-time favorite Doctor Who story, but as I said, feels more like an episode of the Avengers with Steve.
Gary, I totally agree with you. Inferno and Seeds of Doom are in my top 5. They're both masterworks of Who. Masterworks.
Absolutely.
The dark element to I mean, I don't want to just repeat, but I get what you're saying about the Seeds of Doom, for example. If I just freak through the Deadly Assassin there on Inferno, I thought you were going to do that parallel thing and say, that core concept. Again, I think it's brave, a bit like Edge of Destruction, to show some of our loved characters like the Brigadier, Liz Shaw, in a different, this was still new. I mean, the show's only 10, 11 years old at this point.
Well, that was season 7. Yeah.
I mean, it's taking risks is what it's all about, but
well thought out. But also plays it safe. It's plays it straight. Sorry, it never dips from it. It's played with such conviction. Can you imagine if they broke into song or broke the fourth wall? The whole thing would be down the pan in a split second. It's totally, the conviction's 100% in that show all the way through.
Yeah. And I think, oh God, I mean, this is our 151st show in 10 months, and I've been saying for quite a while now, Doctor Who, it's funny, take yourself seriously. Within that, you might have a line, it's a bit like pantomime, you might have a line that the adults get, but take it seriously for the kids. And as Simon Anthony has said in the thread, fourth wall breaking is terrible. No one mentioned a twist at the end. It's not funny, RTD. And that's the issue. Inferno, can you imagine if they looked to camera or we had a fourth wall breaking moment? Why? If you're a writer who's there to scare the kids, you've spent 7 episodes, by the way, nearly 2 months building up this world. The last thing you want to do is pull the rug and destroy all that atmosphere by a quick wink at the camera before Maestro kills June Hudson in her bedroom. There's no need. It sounds to me as though RTD is not taking it in that way seriously. It's like, everybody knows Doctor Who, darling. So what I'll do is there'll be a wink here and a nudge there, and we'll have a song. No. Inferno, gritty, challenging, risk-taking, go for it. One I was going to throw up quickly, I don't know what everyone thinks, the Silurians. Was that the first time the Doctor at the end seems to be actually almost just on the side of the monster, so to speak, and right at the end, the Doctor's commentary is almost against the human race? I don't know. People will tell me if I'm wrong, but that seemed to be early doors where Malcolm Hulke did that. You did have one more, though, was the 2 Doctors.
Oh, I do. Okay, really quickly, I just wrote the 2 Doctors, which is, to me, an example of unsuccessful breaking the mold in that, and this may be just my personal thing with the 2 Doctors, is that I think that there's an overindulgence in kind of graphic violence, which even goes beyond the whole pushing into the acid in Vengeance on Varos. Because here, I mean, yes, such things as Shockeye killing the Oscar, hunting him down and then murdering him, and then the Doctor hunting him. You have the scene which, I mean, personally, I can only call repugnant, which is Jacqueline Hill, prostrating herself on the ground and licking up the blood.
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, it's like, that's just too far. It's too far.
I'm trying to think about, I remember that thinking, isn't it funny? You can see absolute gore, and I don't mind. But actually, yes, that moment when she's on the pavement, I don't know, there was something about, I don't want to see her do that, even though she was playing a part. There was something about it.
Yeah.
And very, very savage as well. My issue was this scene. Since we're on 2 Doctors, come on, let's everyone go down memory lane. I thought the scene where you had the bag rutting Perry was a problem. I don't think you can. I mean, the fact that
it's a very strange scene, that very strangely shot.
I think so. You've got a strangled Doctor again. That's a bit raw. But then it was the fact that you had this blanketed And in the end, it was Jamie, one of our companions. How risky is that? I don't know if that really worked. That Jamie is, I mean, I still don't know. Why was he rutting Perry? I mean, it looked as though it was a sexual attack to me. So I don't know. I thought that was a strange step, a strange way
It
of
was a
ending an
strange
episode.
shot
Well, I
choice.
mean,
I don't
he
get it.
was supposedly kind of like crazed at that point, right? He
Yes.
wasn't in his right mind.
So he turns to that. I know, and of course, we all know this would not be shown now. No way would they write that in the. Oh, sorry. I'm saying that, but in Rogue, he's predatory and he's after a fella, and his companion can die. Sorry. I was trying to write the runs, but somebody's forgotten the rules. Hello, Boomer Doug. I saw you in the thread there. The two doctors was a step too far. I agree with Retrodoc. Don't agree with him too much. He'll be asking to. No, yeah, it's true. William, Jacqueline Pierce, an absolute icon as
Yes.
Servalan. I know, and it was great to get her on our show. I said our show, and she ended up in the Panto as well, didn't she?
And only a couple more weeks until the Blake 7 Blu-ray comes out.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, our puppets. We went to Spain and we had the tenderizing of the flesh, all based on the two doctors, of course. But yeah, I know what you mean, Gary, about that. You look forward to a multi-doctor. They've got Troughton back, brilliant. Fraser Hines. I like that black and white scene at the beginning, and then it turns to color and all the rest of it. I personally wanted all of episode 1 just to be Troughton and Fraser, really. And you've got a 6 episoder, really, isn't it?
Yeah, really, yeah.
In length, and you have the Doctor, fishing for ages, and I got the impression that I don't know, there was a sense of filler, wasn't there, especially in part 3. And you could have done more with Troughton and Fraser.
And like I said, killing the Oscar character, who is a nice character, was just to me kind of gratuitous. And
the Jamie and Second Doctor stuff is what saves that episode, because at the beginning they're just classic with each other. They're two actors who love each other, who love playing their characters, who love joking around, and the whole joke about I don't want to come in unannounced to this conference because they're going to want my autograph. That's a joke on the cons. I mean.
Oh, and the other thing, well done, Stephen Braddock. I mean, we're going to get down to brass tacks in a minute with the news and various other things. But what about the disintegrating Sontarans?
Well,
yeah,
the Sontarans were just as speaking as a monster. I mean, I love Doctor Who because of the monsters. I make no apologies for that. I don't care what the doctors wear or what fashion shoot he's got this week. I couldn't care less. I'm in it for the monsters, And the Sontarans, I'm just going to say, two doctors Sontarans. We have got the height issue, haven't we? And the wobbly heads, and they've got the look of the costumes. Not bad, but they just don't look quite like Sontarans again.
Yeah, the collars were too big, right, Neil?
Yeah,
they were just. I just don't think they were fixed down properly to the costumes. I mean, they act them quite well. They act them well. The actors are doing a good job, but again, it's the size. They just want to be little. Imagine if they'd been little, broad, little gits who were sort of like,
Yeah. But if we're fair about it, Invasion of Time also has like a Cockney Sontaran, and one falling over a chair that stays. There's an element where I just think the Sontarans very early doors. I mean, we mentioned your video clip earlier, Neil, but the Sontarans after Time Warrior and the Sontaran Experiment, they've been misused. I mean, I really don't want him to be a butler anymore either, Strax.
No, awful.
The blue Sontar.
Oh, don't stop me on that. That is like high school, primary school writing. They just who right? They're conquering the universe. Can you imagine Hitler, right, when he was off and he's just going to conquer the world? Let's all start. It's just utter nonsense. And these are meant. The thing with Sontarans, right? You've got me on a rant here. Bottom line is they need to be taken seriously, or they're comical. They're silly looking, really. You've got to treat them safe, serious.
The other thing, Neil, is as they say, Greg Smith here. No one can beat Kevin Lindsay. He did the tongue, didn't he? I mean, he made them. Not lizard-like, but I mean,
Chris Ryan was good, mind. When Chris Ryan's voice and performance, I thought was very good when he kept brought back, and his mask was very good.
Yeah.
He was probably the best Sontaran, I would say, post the time, Sontaran experiment, really, from the
And-
head up, from the neck up, he was the best
and can I
Sontaran.
just say, because it was mentioned that the disintegrating Sontarans in that green fluid that was the obsession of the 80s. Can I just say, these are supposed to be military warriors who have actually fought in the universe, and suddenly they can be double crossed. I mean, come on. They must have. I always thought them as military strategists who would play chess, so to speak, military chess, and to be double crossed in such an easy way. Oh, come on.
We're still waiting for the episode where an army of Sontarans, hard as nails, just blast their way through cities and towns, and there's street fighting, and they're not hiding behind, that horrible story, the Sontaran stratagem or whatever it was, where they sent poison gas through sat-navs. They want to come down and fight people. The whole whoever the writer was, they didn't. Whoever the writer was had not twigged, had not done any research on what the character was. They want to fight. They're designed to fight. Lynx in his first story goes to the castle. He wants to be there. He wants to see the action.
Let's try one last pairing before our big heavy news, where we're going to get very, very serious and really let rip. We've all been well behaved tonight. I've mentioned RTD about 3 times. I'm really good tonight, but it won't last. Oh my God! Just remind everybody. We've gone all racial suddenly. So last pairing, folks, just to cheer us up. Here we go. The Stones of Blood versus the Brain of Morbius.
Oh, wow.
Tough one.
I'm trying to keep them tough. It's Tom Baker versus Tom Baker. That's the first time I've made that clash happen. So as everybody's looking and I'm getting them thinking, I know you might have great memories of the great Hinchcliffe era and the Gothic horror, but which one really scares you? Because I have to say, I'll be honest, the Brain of Morbius got me with the brain in the jar, of course. And the witches were so powerful, weren't they? The Sisters of Khan. But in Stones of Blood, I also thought those light, the Stonehenge stones that moved, that seemed to do it for me for quite a while. But anyway, I've given them thinking time. So Michelle, what's your thoughts on this?
Oh, I'm not sure because I haven't seen either story, so I'm going to pass on this one.
Oh, okay.
So,
Michelle.
I know.
Well, take a guess. Take a guess then. Just guess.
Brain of Morbius, just for the fact that you got a brain in a jar.
So
Okay, there you go.
Well, we've got this is it because of casting. Anthony Parkinson mentions Philip Maddock. Lee Smith says Brain of Morbius. We're getting our votes in now. So Sydney Rough Diamond, equally so. But then, hello, Left-Handed Jedi, Stones of Blood. Yeah, it's a funny one. And after Paul Richards, I'll talk to Gary about your thoughts. Both great stories, but I'm going to have to pick Brain of Morbius. So far, that's outflanking them. Gary, what about you?
Stones of Blood is great until the 4th episode, where it abandons all of the gothic mood it set up for, going onto a spaceship and Tom Baker wearing the barrister's wig and everything, and it just all the mood is gone. So if I had to look at both stories as a whole, it would absolutely be the Brain of Morbius. I mean, you have, that's Doctor Who does Frankenstein. I mean, you can't lose with that. The Ogre were scary, right? But ultimately in the end, they're just kind of like, they don't emote. They just kind of crash through living rooms and stuff and kind of glow and all that kind of stuff. The Target book actually makes them look better because there's a scene in the Target book where it attacks this couple in a car and it like starts sucking their blood and stuff. So the description in the Target book is really great, but I've got to go with Brain of Morbius. It's Frankenstein, and you mentioned in the Sisterhood of Karn, Ohika is hot, so that's why I got to give it to Brain of Morbius.
I mean, and to be honest, I'm not surprised, but actually in the thread, there's a lot of call outs for Stones of Blood as we go as well, to be honest, because obviously innately I will say Brain of Morbius because of the Frankenstein element. The Sisters of Khan I thought were very effective and very dangerous because of course look what happened to Sarah for a whole episode. And then of course the Brain, great Philip Maddock, and it was Doctor Who on top form. But Stones of Blood, as Gareth Morgan says, space elements, original monsters, a modern setting, the couple out camping, getting killed. Oh, I know, they're in the tent. Probably first version of a little bit of Nuki. It was Carry On Camping, and then suddenly you've got a stone outside, and that's the end of you. Yeah. So, Neil, your thoughts?
Oh, well, this is right. Okay, a couple of things. The first ever piece I had in the museum, I sold my motorbike to get, was Ohika's gown. I've got Gilly Brown's gown from
There
that
you go.
episode. So I'm very, very soft spot for that. I also, it was one of the target books in my school library. And I thought the monster, when I was, in the 70s, I just thought was fantastic. And I just
The
think
yellow
it's a fabulous
cover,
story.
right, Neil?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was a hardback actually, and it was in the school library. So every time I had a little time, I'd pull it out and read it. So very, very soft spot for it. But in terms of the Stones of Blood, all I'll say why I think that works. I don't prefer it, but why I think it works is that if you're living in the UK, it has this Englishness again, which resonates. I have a stone circle not far from where we live here, and it's that familiarity. It's like the sea devils coming up on Berwick Beach. It's this thing of the familiarity, the familiar countryside, which resonates heavily. And I agree completely, Gary. Once it's on the spaceship, it loses a lot. So for me. Yeah. And I think it's Brain and Morbius is for me, but they're both good stories.
But look at that Augury on his little tram lines there. Look at that.
There you go.
Yeah.
You also had
I loved that when it was on. When it came on, I loved that show.
And it also has Mary Tam in one of her best outfits, which is
Yes.
the cap that she wears.
Yep.
And all that. That is one of her best outfits in that story.
Well, and I don't think we saw that Space Jesus moment where he's lifting the Augury over his head.
He's stronger than you think, Tom Baker. All these years. He is quite a strong man.
So there you go. We've had a few matchups there. I mean, do you agree with
Good
them in the thread there? We've had 4 big matchups there, and we've really chewed the cud there. But I promised it, and I tell you what, I can't hold back anymore. We've done our monstrous Doctor Who, horrifying Doctor Who, but the biggest horror of all, as some people say, is what's going on now, or things like that. So steel yourselves. This is for the adults only. Here we go. Here's the news. Right, okay, let's start. It's the big race debate, as I said. I didn't think we were going to be there tonight. So, I could do that, couldn't I? I could have music in the background.
That was scary music.
Sharon D. Clarke, who a great actress and played Grace O'Brien in a few episodes, as you may remember, in the 11th season, thinks Doctor Who missed a trick killing off Grace, okay? The big quotation that seems to have got traction is the one on the right. The flack Jodie took for being the first female doctor was ridiculous. Someone said little boys no longer had a role model. Now, just while people start salivating, there's a bit more. She wondered why she was killed off so early by Chibnall, the great progressive. Clarke said that she couldn't believe the character was brought to an end. I was like, people, you've missed a trick here. To have those different generations of women in the TARDIS was glorious. A black woman, a white woman, and a brown woman. And then just to kind of just wrap up before I get comments from the thread and from my panel. And there's the big quote about it being ridiculous for people having a problem with a female doctor. We weren't attacking Jodie. I'm going to say that very clearly. I was attacking the fact that you could be gender fluid, because I think it falls into another type of debate. And then I don't know why we need that comment. Someone said little boys no longer had a role model. What the hell? Look, I know there are other stories out there. I have to say, if you look at the TV now, I'm not quite sure how many role models they are. And of course, knowing at school, we had a thread coming in about toxic masculinity. The boys were under attack on how they thought or behaved sometimes. And now she says, Ncuti Gatwa's funky, funny, charming, cheeky, sexy black doctor. We're on the front. Look, I know she's working with him, by the way, in the importance of being earnest. So that's okay, colleagues. But when she says Ncuti Gatwa is charming, cheeky, sexy black doctor. Well, forget the black doctor, because that shouldn't be relevant. Sexy, he cries. I didn't know men crying was sexy, and I'm nothing against crying, but I didn't think on the TV and in Hollywood that was the moment. Cheeky, Bonnie Lanford's character tells him off. I don't get it. Anyway, I'll take a break for a second and see what everybody thinks, because there's more to this race debate. This is just the starter for 10. Gary, I can say I've cheered you up now.
All right. Well, first of all, I don't blame her for not having knowledge of how the show developed, but Grace had to die because that was the start of Graham's arc. You know, his mourning her, and that's the reason why he went off on the TARDIS, because to help him deal with, you know, and get over it. And even what's his name? Ryan. I always forget his name. Their arcs needed her to die, so that had to happen. You know, and as for the other stuff, I do not want a cheeky, sexy doctor. Period. No. I mean, cancel me if you must. I do not want a cheeky, sexy
where's
doctor.
this cheeky, and where is it? We've had 9 episodes of Shooty. Where's the cheeky?
How about somebody with integrity?
I guarantee. Brendan, let me ask you, what do you think? What are the odds that Sharon Clark has watched this entire season of Doctor Who?
Yeah, minimal. And this is the shocking thing, you know, speak when you're well researched and you've got good sources and all the rest of it. That's what I try and do with the Sense4Your Saloon. But equally, actors sometimes go for missteps. You know, there was another actress, you know, the lady who played Martha Jones's mum, who's in Bridgerton, who obviously, when she saw the coronation and the royal family balcony, said on TV, she said that looks like a very white balcony. And you think, we shouldn't be saying this.
And the flack that Jodie took for being the first female doctor, because she was monumentally wrong for the role and she didn't bring anything to it. That's why the flack, not because she was a woman. I mean, granted, there was the segment who said the doctor should never be a woman, which I actually happen to agree with. But that aside, she was just wrong for the role.
And it wasn't well written for her. And I think Simon Anthony has said that in the thread. I mean, there's so many different ways of discussing this, Michelle. I don't know which bits you want to pick on. But of course, I do have an issue with, first of all, being a Doctor Who fan, and over many, many years, you've built a character up. And if the argument now in TV is you need a strong female lead, write a show for that person. Don't destroy what you've got. They will never turn James Bond into Jane Bond. So why are you doing it to Doctor Who? And I know there was the joke after Logopolis, Tom Baker talking to the press saying the next Doctor might be female. Jane T played on that a little bit, but it was a joke. That was the point. It was a joke. They were never going to do it. Stephen Moffat then does that moment in, was it not Heaven Sent? It was the other one, Hellbent, and add the gender fluid Lord and chaos. Anyway, Michelle, where do you stand on this in this debate so far?
I'll take an actor trying to get relevance for 500, Alex.
No,
I think that's hard. That's harsh. I really think I can understand an actor going, "Oh my goodness, I had so much fun playing this character. I wish I'd been around more. You know, it's a shame that we had to be killed off. But again, we needed to have her death to be relevant for the storyline that they were going for Graham and Ryan. So I can understand her being, hey, I had so much fun. It's a shame that I died. I think she is definitely conflating and seeing that Shooty as his person versus Shooty as his character. So he may be in person this very charming, very funny, very witty person. But unfortunately, his doctor has not been written as this. And what I thought his doctor was going to be is totally, unfortunately, not what we're seeing on the screen, much to my disappointment now. And I really think this is pathetic, trying to go back the whole gender debate. I see it as a really... I'm sorry, I'm going to be cynical and see it as an actor trying to get relevance, trying to get attention.
Yeah, this is like a classic. It's like a classic.
And again, it's once again throwing a classic doctor under the bus again. Tired of it. tired of it.
It's like a classic Hollywood Oscars speech at the end when
Yeah.
they'll either mention global warming or something else. And
Yeah, and
I-
again,
I-
it's another attempt to try to throw Peter Davison under the bus.
but the issue is come on, people. You know for a fact, she knows, surely Sharon D. Clarke knows that look, Jodie Whittaker's ratings were because the scripts weren't very good. Her era was written by Chris Chibnall. That was the problem. She was probably miscast. She's a good actress. She was miscast as the Doctor. She also had those awkward lines at the beginning when she talked about the white male prism. I really don't know why she did that in an interview. It's a bit like Shooty saying, go and touch grass. They've both started in the wrong position. And they're bigged it up so much that we now have a female Doctor that I was expecting a great delivery rather than, I think we call it virtue signaling now. There you go. We've got a female Doctor. Oh, and then you get the first story and you go, oh, well, I just fell flat. But yes, let's say it one more time. Sharon D. Clarke, the ridicule, the anger, the flack was because the female Doctor, it didn't work. The stories weren't very interesting. And I have to say, if the criticism was sexist, I would call it out. But the criticism was from Doctor Who fans who were saying, I don't get this. And a bit like with what Gary said, I'm a Doctor Who fan who says, you're changing the character. So I'm challenging that. It's not flack against Jodie, though. Neil, what are your thoughts?
I've never said this. I've never had been sort of talked about this, actually. Here's a little observation from being a school teacher for nearly 30 years, actually. I started a Doctor Who club in 2002 at my school. And the children at that point were 9, 10. They'd never seen Doctor Who before. And a bunch of generally quiet boys. Okay, now just maybe autistic, maybe quieter, just generally a bunch of lovely little guys would come along. And I said, look, Friday lunchtimes, come and watch Doctor Who with me. If you want to, basically, if you want to break from having a football kicked at your head, come and sit in my room. We'll build a TARDIS and we'll put it, and we had literally VHS tapes and have a quiet, let's all just chill together and watch Doctor Who. We watched Tomb of Cybermen, Ark in Space. That little Doctor Who club started off with 9 children. It was 8 boys and 1 girl. Now then, by the time David Tennant kicked off, this club went to about 70, and I had to go into the school. I had to go into the school hall, and we had to project it. Okay. Now, by the time we got to Jodie's era, we were back to, get ready, about 8 boys, 1 girl. And when I talked to the girls about it, I said, you'll all be watching Doctor Who. Now we're not watching it. And the girls actually said, preferred David Tennant. Now, there's this misconception that I think that girls want to watch girls in certain roles all the time. Right. My wife always says, I want to watch Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, not a teenage girl. I like, as a woman and a feminist, I actually want to watch Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. And my wife is absolutely a feminist. So, so I just think, now, what I also think was growing up as I wouldn't say poverty. I would say we didn't have a lot of money. And Doctor Who was a big deal to me. I couldn't afford new clothes. My parents had lived through the war, so they were the sort of darn your socks and mend your clothes generation. And Tom Baker, what was wonderful was he wasn't cool. He wasn't sexy. He was somebody who opened my mind to the universe. I didn't feel I had to, get the latest fashions, look slick, be sexy, be all the things I wasn't. He was somebody as a thinking little person, looking back, who was interested in science and all these things. He gave me something to aspire to. I wanted to be a thoughtful, clever, somebody, and also somebody who didn't care about what I was wearing, didn't have to have the latest things. And what Russell Davies, for my money, has done is he's turned the Doctor into like a marketing strategy for you've got to work out, you've got to be cool, you've got to be sexy, all the things that I still don't rate as being important to being a good human being. I rate being interesting, having things to say. And I think we've lost that with this blasted character now. I can't relate to it. And I don't think people come to the museum, very few are watching this version and can relate to it. And that's all I've got to say on it. Yeah,
I'm quite shocked. I'm quite shocked at Sharon D. Clarke going here with that last statement at the bottom there saying, you missed a trick. Now, as an actress or actor, you can say, "Oh, it was a great character. It's a shame she was written out. Oh, I was so disappointed. I think that character had so much potential." But I think Ryan would say that because once he was helped to ride a bike, is that it? And suck a thumb. There wasn't much else going on. But when she says, you see, what's this got to do with the narrative? We are Doctor Who fans, we are sci-fi fans, and we like a good story and a good concept. But when Sharon D. Clarke says, to have those different generations of women in the TARDIS was glorious. A black woman, a white woman, and a brown woman. What's exciting about that? If she said 3 women in the TARDIS, I might have gone with the argument a little bit more that it might be, pioneering.
Because it's about representation.
Exactly.
And that's all that it is.
And that's got nothing to do with a good story. And so she's arguing and attesting that basically, what a missed opportunity. You could have had lots of different looking people, skin colors in the TARDIS. And
I don't know. I mean, to be quite honest, I don't know what Sharon Clarke is complaining about. She had a whole episode named after her character. She was the woman that fell to Earth, right? She falls off the crane and dies. So it's like your episode was named after your character. Not a lot of people get that. So there you go.
It's just, I think
the other interesting thing, if you go back to season 18 for a brief second, you had Romana and the Doctor were kind of on par. You had a male and female Time Lord, and they were a brilliant team together. And in that particular season, Romana absolutely trumps the Doctor at times, and vice versa. It's just great, and that's how you play it. You can, yes.
That scene you've just mentioned, though, should we just remind people who might think we're going down some strange road regarding the comments here? In Destiny of the Daleks, those regenerations, which I didn't quite like.
Oh, right.
Romana had blue skin. She had black skin.
She did. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Hello, Sharon D. Clarke, as Neil has just said, we have had a lot of people with different skin colors way back. And Romana showed she could choose from them all, and they were all equal. It was just that some were too tall, too short. That was the joke with Tom Baker. This is my problem with the issue of all media at the moment, Marvel, in Hollywood and everything, is make a good story, make a good character, but please, why does that have to be relevant? A black woman, a white woman, a brown woman. It sounds like it's the old joke, you have an Irishman, a Scotsman. It just sounds like, excuse me, we're falling down stereotypes again. It's just instead of having an Irishman.
Again, I mean, if I was running the show, here's what I'd do, right? I would say that just like on Earth, people's skin color is to do with pigment due to evolutionary change that is caused by how much sunlight they've existed for thousands of years. So probably you'd have black Time Lords in a very much more sun-laden area of the planet, and you'd have pale-skinned Time Lords, and when they are in areas where they don't get as much sunlight, and then they would regenerate accordingly. And because that would just make sense. But again, that's because there's a concept. But this has all been done because of DEI, so there is no concept underlying it. It's just we have to do it, and that's it. But again, I bring the science in.
Different generations having an older, more mature woman's perspective on life as a companion versus the younger person who is a little bit more, versus the alien and how they.
I would bring it.
That would have been a fantastic, interesting concept to see. And she just said we have different generations of people on the TARDIS. Yeah, because we got great ways of looking at things.
I would have an Abe Sapien type companion now, blue skin, purple, whatever. Let's just blow the whole thing out the water and just give him a nice alien with a prosthetic and stuff the whole lot. That's what I'd do.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, this news item does not stop there.
Good.
So, Joe Martin also joined in. I'm jealous of the generation growing up with a black doctor, right? Now, okay. She starts off on that, and I've got plenty more. So let me just kind of set it up for you. So basically, why are we going there? Is Doctor Who good? Is it bad? Is it well written? Is the issue. Speaking further, and the fact that you've got a middle-aged woman, it just should never happen really, because we're invisible if you're a woman past 35. If you're a woman that's not a size 8, if you're a black woman, you're kind of in the sideline, you're invisible. What now? So I tick all those boxes, and guess what? I'm visible, and I'm proud to fly that flag. And so here we go again. Colin Baker is my doctor. I've been watching Doctor Who from then. I'd use all my mum's foil to make up my cousins as Daleks, and I'd be the doctor. They'd say, but you can't be the doctor. The doctor's not a girl. The doctor's not black. And so when this job came up and it was revealed to me who I really was going to be, because when I originally auditioned, no one told me what I was auditioning for. And then she goes, I think if I'd have known, I would have blown the audition. She would have been too nervous. And of course, she now gets messages from Brazil to Australia about her representation from people of color. The fugitive doctor, as we all know and we've all said, is a stronger doctor than the Geordie doctor. Because she's almost like a cameo in one or two stories, I think she's just better written, better depicted, better costume, better TARDIS. The whole thing works. So did you hear the sexism there? I mean, God, I'm full of it. No,
I think she would have been a better doctor, period. She should have been the female doctor. They should have just had Capaldi regenerate, go black, and then we start the new series as her as not knowing who she is, and then discovering that she's the doctor. That would have been a much more interesting storyline.
And then we've fallen into this other thing now, which is you need to see yourself on TV. Now, we heard Neil's story about the Doctor Who club at school. I know I was ahead of you. I had Doctor Who posters all over my office, and people normally came to my office upset or highly emotional about something that's happened. So normally I hope that the posters would deflect them, and as they're looking around, not wanting to talk to me at this point, they're still not calm enough. They see a monster, they see something, they go, oh, I remember that. And it happened quite a lot. They'd suddenly kind of forget why they're in the office, as they're taking deep breaths, and they go, oh, I love that, and they'd start to talk about it, and then we'd deal with it. And as Neil said, and I concur, as we hit the Chibnall era, none of that was happening. The kids didn't know what I had on the wall.
I think I just want to think. I think that this quote, at least to me, is slightly different from the Sharon quotes we had before. Obviously, I think it's unfortunate that if you are a child and you want to like dress up or play a character that you like and admire with qualities that maybe you want to have yourself, strength and, resourcefulness and all of that. I honestly do think, and I'm really not being condescending, I do think that's unfortunate when any child has said, you can't be that for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. That's terrible. Mm-hmm. But there is a differentiation between kids wanting to play act as a character, because, kids wanting to play act as a character and what the character on television should actually be. I think there's a differentiation there. I think that, and maybe it sounds like it's apples and oranges, but for me, I can still say I don't think the actual doctor should be anything but, should be not a woman, not black, because that's changing the character too much. And to me, that's yards away from, I would never tell like a little girl who likes the show, oh, you can never be, the doctor. I would never be. I think that's horrible.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that doesn't translate to the character on television should be able to be anything.
But also there's a degree of reality here, right? I mean, throughout my life, I've had role models that I love, I mean, Tom Baker, John Pertwee. I'm not as tall as them. I just haven't got their character. I'm never going to be them. And that's okay. I accept I'm never going to have that strength of, charisma that those guys have. I love the band Rush. I wanted to be Geddy Lee. I'm not Jewish. I haven't got his hair and I haven't got the height and range of his voice. Now, as bitterly disappointing as that was, that's a fact. And that I just accept that. I'm me. I'm strong at me. I will never be certain characters. Even as an actor, there's billions of characters I will never be that I would like to be. But it's okay. We've just got to move on. That's okay. It's like, why? Do you know what I mean? We've sort of got this everybody can't play, everybody can't be Isaac Newton, although they're trying hard. But everybody can't be Isaac Newton.
And like we said, and you were saying it earlier, that the Doctor. The Doctor was never cool. The Doctor was an outsider. The Doctor was a pariah. The Doctor had to use his brain. He had to outfox his enemy. He may not be a big action hero. He was like an anti-hero. That was the classic case. And everybody was equal in his head. That's why he even put the Silurians higher than the humans at one point, because he thought they were victims. The whole thing there was well established. So anybody, black, white, whoever you are in the world, male or female, you could actually see this doctor as somebody speaking for you because he was an outsider. But
Yeah.
now we've got the Shooty Gatwa 15th Doctor, who gave me the loving, arrives at unit showboating like a diva.
Modesty.
Yeah.
Modesty
Yeah.
is a wonderful thing. And the character of
Humility.
Guy Pearce plays the time traveler in the remake of The Time Machine. And I remember that coming out at the same time, around the time David Tennant was the Doctor. And I thought, wow, Guy Pearce has got a lot of charisma. And he plays this very modest time traveler who's not shouting about himself all the time. And he's a lovely character, and I warmed to him. And we just could do with some integrity. Modesty is a really appealing feature in somebody.
And we do, and in this iteration under RTD, the Doctor is depicted in such a different way. Whether you like it or not, it's. I don't like the loss of humility. I find it fascinating that RTD is obsessed that the classic Doctors were all pompous when you've got this Doctor who's a diva. I just don't get it. Why is that better than being pompous? And I would argue they weren't pompous. Now, I just want to bring in the thread because there's some great stuff here. Hello, Garbage. I know you've been there for a while. From a straight white male point of view, in the last few years, I am shocked at the lack of white men in adverts. Where are they? Do a test later. Look at 10 adverts. Yeah, I've done the same test because in the 90s, I was colorblind. Very colorblind, just enjoyed TV and movies and adverts, actually, because there were great adverts in Britain then. Now I find I'm counting going, why is that person there? They've done that. They've forced that by doing this ridiculous tick box scenario. Divine and Dragon, I know you've been there all along. I begin to feel with a common message from Martin and Clark that there is a push to change the narrative.
Well, there's a whole separate discussion to be had, because it's true not only of Doctor Who, but of a lot of things, of people's inability to enjoy a piece of entertainment unless they see themselves represented in it in some way, shape, or form. That's a whole other discussion.
So
I'm not even finished.
Can I just say one last thing on that? It's like one of my favorite comic characters growing up was Black Panther. I used to get the Jack Kirby American reprints, and I adored it. I adored Wakanda, the whole world of that. I love Black Panther. I made a Black Panther costume best I could. I knew I was never going to change my skin color. I love Black Panther. It's fine that I could not do that. I knew that was never going to be cast as Black Panther, and that's okay. Right. He was one of the coolest characters I knew. It's.
I find it interesting.
It's like growing up watching all the Disney princess films. I knew I couldn't talk to animals. Unfortunately, it's
exactly.
Like I
it didn't work out for you that way.
I was never going to be. Look at me. I'm a middle-aged fat white woman. I knew I was never going to be like. It's okay. It's okay.
Richard Brown has an interesting question here. Change a black character to a white character and see how the black fans react then. And this is not where we should be. This has the whole debate in how characters are represented in the media. It's debased everything. And this is the problem. Richard Brown, I get your question. I know what you're saying. This is the issue. Suddenly we've got a major change. I'll be intrigued if the James Bond has the first black male lead. It's a possibility, isn't it? Rob Fellows, if only you were related to people exactly like yourself, you will be totally without empathy and unable to understand a different point of view. Exactly. We don't want echo chambers.
And that's kind of where we're going societal wise now.
Yeah.
If you don't think the way I think, you're an evil, horrible person and you'll be cut off someone's life.
Yeah. We've got to widen the scope. Good point made there. Claude, isn't it a shame that we have to address these issues? Well, we do, because they keep getting raised by other people. Just give us an intelligent TV show. We don't need all this baggage.
Right.
Doctor Who doesn't need it. It's been limping along.
Also, actors really aren't clever in their real life. They're not as smart as the average person. They're just the person who happens to do an interesting career, but doesn't mean they're smarter than the average person.
And we've got Peter here. The people like me don't matter because our opinions don't matter because we're supposed to be grateful. It's the people she was playing with, not everyone in the world. You see, this is it. You've got Doctor Who fans who are suddenly feeling got at, attacked, called out. Remember Dot and Bubble's whole structure? The narrative was to test us. I mean, this is not a good place to be. So, you know, Gary, I could see you.
Like I said, this may be naive. I'm not trying to be provocative, but I just don't,
No?
because I've never been the one to ask this, but I just don't see how something is inherently less than if you don't see yourself represented in it.
I agree.
Maybe, like I said, maybe I'm just not the one to ask that. I don't know.
I wish people. I mean, I don't switch on the telly to watch me. I switch on to get different cultures, different things, different experiences, different dramatic.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I watch shows and TV and read. That's what it's about.
Well,
Not
you
to
see-
see myself reflected all the time.
Well, you see, as
Crazy.
an English teacher, I think one of the old tried and tested quotes we used too much was to walk in, and it's from To Kill a Mockingbird, to walk in somebody else's shoes. That's the whole point of literature, fiction, plays, TV, movies, that you don't just see yourself. Surely that's the point. So it was.
I mean,
I'm
not. No, go ahead, Michelle. I'm sorry.
When I was going through grad school, the movie that resonated the most with me was The Princess and the Frog, because she's trying to get to a goal. It's tough, it's difficult. And I was going through the exact same time. It was some difficult challenge in my life to get my master's. And the song Almost There was my theme song. You're almost there. You're almost getting it. You just get through this, goal, the challenges, and you'll get your reward.
I'm enjoying Reese Roder. Good to see you. I'm a heterosexual English male. My favorite superhero is Buffy. So where's the representation? I know this is it. We don't need to see ourselves, and I don't think. And I can see what Gary's doing. We're not talking from a position as the majority or anything like that. We're just not. We're just saying. I think TV and movies are about more than that. To Kill a Mockingbird is about. I mean, some would argue that even that's got an issue to do, it's from the right viewpoint, but it's a good story and it does preach to walk in somebody else's shoes. Atticus Finch says so.
I mean, I'm not a good swimmer. Does that mean that Baywatch is terrible? No.
Yeah, I can't swim, and I still enjoy Man from Atlantis with Patrick Duffy.
I didn't want to go to Man from Atlantis, Neil, but I
wish I had his yellow trunks and I could swim like him. But at the end of the day, it hasn't stopped me. I don't switch off. I can't identify with a man who can swim underwater. How awful for me.
With webbed hands. Oh dear.
That's right.
I used to screaming during the Olympics. I don't care.
Then he moved to Dallas.
I loved watching Dallas. As a kid, a working class kid in Middlesbrough, we weren't rich and we weren't oil barons, but we loved Dallas.
There you go. Well, that's probably, you liked it because they had the Man from Atlantis on it.
Well, yeah.
One of my favorite shows is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I got into in season 4.
Great show.
It's a brilliant show. And I've got, you can't see what I've got behind us. Never mind. What a great show. It's completely diverse. And I never, ever thought 1 minute it's about diversity. Ever, because it's just done in an adult, sensible, seamless way, and it's just brilliant. And
let me remind you, while we're still on this race discussion, which I never thought we'd get in Doctor Who, because it's always been quite pioneering, I thought. However, I reminded people earlier that there was an article during the Matt Smith era. And there's a few things I want to show. And one is the BBC quote, because it just shows you how much the world has changed. But if I just show you this first of all. So Doctor Who is a terrible racist. Academics blast BBC sci-fi series. And you'll see I've zoomed in on a couple of bits, one on this page and one on the next. Australian academic Lindy Orthia. You've all heard of her, have you? She helped compile the book. She said, the biggest elephant in the room is the problem privately nursed by many fans of loving a TV show when it is thunderingly racist. Why does she say that? She claims that the Time Lord is dismissive towards his black companions and shows contempt for primitive people. New book, Doctor Who and Race, questions why the Doctor, played by Matt Smith, would rather battle aliens like the Daleks and Cybermen than fight slavery. And on the right there, you've got the BBC sounding so unlike the BBC of today, saying casting on Doctor Who is colourblind. It's always about the best actors for the roles.
What's the name of the person who said that?
I know I shouldn't be making her famous, but there you go. Lydia Orthia.
Lindy, you're a dimwit.
I would say go right back to the Daleks in 1963-4, and he's fighting he's helping the Thals who are enslaved effectively. Oh, for God's, yeah,
I
give
know,
up.
I know.
So
You know,
basically, this person's saying, I can't tell from Lindy, it could be a man or a woman, that if a show doesn't focus on racial issues, it's racist. It's like, okay, you are racist if you aren't preoccupied with racial issues. I mean, get serious.
but you see, okay, she must be. I don't think she knows what she's talking about. She's taken a series that then was what nearly 50 years old, and she's nitpicked, which I suppose people, if they want to make an argument, can make any argument under the sun. However, on the right, the BBC, Disney, none of these agencies would say this now, would they? Casting on Doctor Who is colourblind. It's always about the best actors for the roles. I've teed us up because Sharon D. Clark is saying the narrative should have been different, could have been better if it had a white woman, a black woman, and a brown woman. And suddenly we've got the talk about we need to put certain people on the TV for representation, for this, for that, for the other. And there's the BBC in the 2000s saying casting on Doctor Who is colourblind. It's always about the best actors. Gosh, in 10 years, the world has gone upside down.
We can kind of see the beginnings of it right here in this article. I mean, you can see where they're talking about it needs to be, diverse, and it needs to be, they're not understanding the analogy that good sci-fi, good drama many times works very well with analogy, where you may not 100% reflect your world when then you start thinking about it and you realize, like, wait a minute, this and this can stand in for this and that. And it makes you think about, okay, so what's going on in our own real world?
And then, sorry, Gary, I'll just throw this up.
No, go ahead.
The Peter here, great point. They already ruined the Rosa Parks story. Now you see,
that should have been a straight historical. They didn't need to have it.
There's the media thinking, right, we're gonna have the right virtues and the right narratives and the right characters and the right representation. We'll do a Rosa Parks story. And of course, my issue with it, whether it's accurate or not, my issue is you had a black character helped by a female lead character, and actually a white female character was the one who helped her and nudged her and everything. The black female character couldn't think for herself in that way. She had to be nudged and poked.
But
and
anybody knew about the real Rosa Parks, you knew that was not. She was a strong advocate and social justice champion long before that, and that was actually her decision, was a calculated decision that she made, the push an issue that needed to be taken care of, because there have been other people who were arrested for the exact same thing.
To choose that story and that character with Doctor Who didn't work because you diminished Rosa Parks' character because she needed some sort of advice on nudging or something.
She got on that bus that day knowing she was going to be arrested.
I've always thought
brave and willing to risk it.
What about Gary?
No, I was just going to say really quickly. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Michelle. I was just going to say that I've always thought that if they end up gender swapping Davros, her name will be Davrosa.
Don't start. Don't even go there. I mean, we might discover that the Davros has legs and private parts. I mean, it might go further. That's
next season. That's next season, Brendan.
Yeah, we've seen Davros's eye open. We've seen he's got legs. We might discover more. He's got a skirt under there. I don't know. Neil, come on. You wanted to come in.
Oh my, no, I just don't. I mean, I'm sorry. What I'm actually thinking as I sit here listening to this is, I'm just thinking of just got me thinking of season 18. Wouldn't it be wonderful, right, if we got a completely new team in, and I get new young sci-fi writers coming to my museum here, and wouldn't it be wonderful if we started talking about concepts again? Yes. And stopped obsessing on this. Mm-hmm. So in other words, stories about a science fiction concept. And all of this is just dominating what should be a show about ideas. As I say, I was a little boy who looked up at the night sky and Doctor Who. I've just took my son to an observatory this weekend and we went stargazing. and had a wonderful talk by a chap who inspired my, and me again. And that is what I want to see in Doctor Who. I don't want to, and it's all gone so far off what Doctor Who was about. And also, all I'm going to say is I studied astrophysics, guys, and basically, I know what Isaac Newton looked like. He was an emaciated young bloke who was fleeing London from the plague. That's why he was in the countryside in that garden with the apple.
Well,
he was not a buff, preened model.
That's another good.
That's not what he was. It's gone so far off kilter. It's crazy.
It's another good call out, because one little cameo like that you could dismiss, but add it to these quotes, add it to various other things, and you're going, oh, hold on a minute, because Isaac Newton's family, do exist. Isaac Newton and how you want to depict him and toying around with historical fact is actually changing. I mean, why? I mean, they didn't change the Beatles, did they? They wouldn't dare, because it's too contemporary. But they thought somebody going back 100 odd so years, we can do that. Yeah. Their family still exists.
Well, they're not only that, just purely as a viewer, okay? I'm not, a lot of people, will not. At school, as a teacher, I've taught science, right? We know what this man looks like. And just as a viewer, as soon as that depiction of that character came on, it took me out of any drama or any reality, because I know he doesn't look like that. I know for a fact Isaac Newton did not spend hours preening his eyebrows and going to the gym, right? He was a brain, he was a thinking, but that's horrible. I don't mean, sorry guys, just to be clear, I don't mean because you go to the gym, you're not a thinking human being. No, but what I'm saying is Isaac Newton, at that point in his life, that's not the depiction. No. The reason that Van Gogh worked so well, not Van Gogh, it was Van Gogh, wasn't it? Sorry, worked so well was because they cast him perfectly. So you could suspend your disbelief, expertly in that. It was expertly cast, that depiction.
And they kept it to that he was going to commit suicide. They kept it with the harsh reality that he had a brief little moment in his life. But then the ending still remained unchanged.
Right. So you can see this racial debate has come from, I don't know, I was blindsided by it. Bill Potts was a black character. Martha Jones was a great character, except remember the argument with Martha Jones is, why make your first proper black companion be unrequited love and fall in love with the Doctor? You didn't need to do that. They've rectified it since with what she's done with, everything else. Now, let's cheer up. We're Doctor Who fans, as you said, Neil, sci-fi concepts, stuff like that is what intrigues us. Yeah. So on this news item, see for yourself. We had David Tennant showing his wife's, I think it's Instagram, isn't it? What does this mean? She says, can we give them any clues? So we're on our way somewhere exciting, but I'm not allowed to say. And what I'm doing is I'm adding those two Instagrams. I might be making 2 and 2 and making 5, but the point is I'm a Doctor Who fan and I want to speculate and look forward to something. She was obviously in The Doctor's Daughter. That might be relevant. She says she's going to do something exciting. Well, she's an actress. She's got a job maybe, yeah? Brendan, calm down. But in the Doctor Who magazine, Rtd said The Secret Project. And a lot of Doctor Who fans are going, I wonder what the secret project is. So this might be linked to it, or it might be something different. So there's 2 questions, really. Your thoughts on what it could be, and your thoughts, since you've probably heard about the secret project. We've got one spin-off with the Sea Devils and Unit. What do you reckon's coming up to maybe entice us? What do you reckon, Michelle?
I'm thinking maybe cameo into the Earth to the Sea, or whatever's supposed to be the battle for the Earth. The way things were going, I don't see any other secret project being filmed. Maybe she comes in to the new spinoff. That's where as far as my brain can go.
Gary?
Honestly, my first thought was that, we've moved into the narcissist portion of the show. It's like clearly they proceed from an assumption that, we're inherently interested in anything that they're doing. I don't know if it's going to be show related, if it's outside of the miniseries, because the miniseries completes the 26 episode order that Disney placed for, which includes the 2 seasons, the Christmas special, the 60th, and all of that. They would have, if it's something outside of that, as much as RTD wants to be, kind of, be RTD and try to spin it, not a single episode has been renewed beyond this war between land and the sea. So if they come out and say, well, it's going to be for a Doctor Who thing, that would be news, because I don't know who'd be financing it, because it's not Disney. As far as they've said, they would have to open up a whole new deal where they're financing it all. I mean, it could be, they just announced this weekend, that that Good Omens now has been cut from a full season to like a 90-minute thing. Maybe she's going to be, appear in the 90-minute wrap-up TV movie for that series. It could be that.
I was thinking Good Omens the first too.
So, I mean, as I come to Neil, I mean, we could be looking at different clues, but, we do like to look at clues. I mean, when you watch a decent program, you're looking for clues. So I'm just applying it again. This is Georgia Tennant, Lee Smith, for anybody, if you're not sure. Georgia Tennant, who has been in Doctor Who, obviously is married to David Tennant, and obviously has been, I don't know, been political lately. They both have, probably because one of their children they think is trans. So there's a lot of different issues going on. But what does this mean, says hubby? She's got, I mean, why is she not saying I'm going to roll to film? I mean, I know some jobs you have to keep it quiet, but Neil, any thoughts on what we're doing here? Because I think we're jumping the gun if it's anything to do with Doctor Who, because the spin-off, we don't know if it's going to land. The series, I didn't think landed ratings-wise, although they say it was all right. So any more secret projects to do with Doctor Who, I think, is putting money, throwing money away, possibly.
I can't say this any other way. It's simply just stop this version of what it is. It's screwed. It's any moment we could have a song, any moment the Doctor or whoever can hop into bed with some. It's just not. I just want it. I can't. I'm so sorry. I want to be positive. I just don't care. And I know that's awful because it's my favorite show. I just can't. It's gone so far off what the original. I just read the making of Doctor Who from 1975, whatever it was, Terence Dick's book, and I was listening to it in the car, and I was listening to the original show Bible. And honestly, I would recommend anybody just go and listen to that. And just what a great show that sounds. I wish someone would make it, because this ain't it. I just can't. I'm sorry. I don't like musicals. I'm a heavy metal guy, right? And electronic music. I played in a Rush cover band, and I actually played bass guitar with Brian Johnson once. But that doesn't mean I would put heavy metal into Doctor Who and everyone starts headbanging for like 10 minutes. I just wouldn't do. I just can't get excited about what this production team is doing at all. And I just want it to stop.
If it's linked, of course, I'm just on.
Sorry.
No.
I apologize.
It's all right. David Harding, that's why I don't mind him doing a Jenny Who series. She was created under the First Watch. And if he ruins her character, I don't see that as being a huge loss. For once, instead of doing somebody else's creation like Sutek, ruin your own. I mean, of course, she would be a female lead if that's the case. We could be, they could be,
with what they're saying here, they could be going to a new restaurant.
Yeah, I know. But
I hope they are. Because I wish them very well. I hope they're going to have a really nice meal. I mean, I've got nothing against them at all. I mean, I don't like the show they're in at the minute, but I mean, I absolutely hope they have a really nice night out.
So
there you go.
So let's have a look at another item. I mentioned it the other day, but of course, these items don't go away, and I'm dying to hear what some of you think of this. So if I just showed you, I mean, it's been discussed on certain streams. I've also been part of this. Doctor Who production news. According to someone who listened to the recent episode of 42 to Doomsday podcast, a Disney insider allegedly told a guest that while Doctor Who viewership was solid and met expectations, Disney Plus retained only 30% of those new subscribers after they're binged. So I was just going to come to you, Gary, first. Does this shock you? Does this surprise you?
No, because I know that back when, I mean, I didn't have Disney Plus on my free kind of cable thing, but I know that when the season started, you could re-up for like a free month or whatever. And so I got like the free month, and then I subscribed like for 1 month after to watch it, and then afterwards I unsubscribed because nothing Disney Plus had interested me. So I think this is a really, really, really bad number. If 70% of people who subscribed, who came into Disney Plus because of Doctor Who, left right after it was over, which tells Disney that all of these people aren't staying to sample everything else that's on the channel, which is what Disney wants. Disney probably is fine with whatever viewing numbers they want. They don't care about viewing numbers. They don't care if it's on the night of, the week after, whatever. They want subs. All they care about are the subs numbers. And if Doctor Who isn't moving the needle at all for subs, that is going to be the thing that decides whether they pick it up or drop it, because that's how they measure. That's their metric for, was an investment worth it? Did it help our sub count? And according to this, with 70% of people bailing after the season's over, that's not at all what they want.
Michelle?
I just think they're trying to throw Doctor Who under the bus instead of saying it's the Star Wars shows. They're trying to do anything to say that these Star Wars shows are successful, and they're not. So I think they're just trying to throw Doctor Who under the bus and say, oh, it's the Doctor Who fans who aren't staying. No, it's the Star Wars fans who are tired of the Acolyte.
I just find it remarkable that this company's taken over some of my favorite franchises. I mean, I love the first 10 years. I mean, I grew up reading Marvel comics. I remember watching getting any photograph from the newspapers of any glimpses of the Alien set in 78, 79. And these are all beloved franchises. And I just think from a creative standpoint that one company can take all of that and be in charge of all of that product is actually kind of wrong. I know it's business and it's the way it is, but it is just business. And I think that effectively we're silencing voices because we've got this one, it's like a sci-fi show in itself. It's a dystopian view of the entertainment industry, really, isn't it? Where you've got this dictatorship. And the fact that whenever I see sort of like Alien and the Disney logo on it, I go, what? It's just like Mickey Mouse and Alien. It's just, I know they've got all these shows, but I think Doctor Who, I'm not surprised that Disney's plummeting. I just think, the start of the Doctor Who this season was diabolical. I mean, that Space Babies was absolutely, anybody would be signing on to that.
However, there is an element where Rtd says Disney were giving notes, on the Church and Ruby Road and that, and actually inserted a scene in that. And you do wonder whether this is, I know we're correlating Disney and what's happened in season 1, but you sometimes wonder whether Rtd has changed his writing to please his new masters. Or
I'm sure he probably has. I think that, you've just got to look at what they've done to Star Wars, which do you know what? The sound of a TIE fighter would have got me really excited at one time. Now it's literally like bird song outside, or the sound of people emptying their bins. I couldn't care less about those wonderful things because they've been saturated with, Disney has saturated us with Star Wars content to the point where it's wallpaper now. It's like background noise. I couldn't care if a Star Destroyer went over the head of my house. Now I just think, it's a Disney show again. Instead of that excitement.
And it's substandard content. We're not seeing good shows, substandard. It was excellent content and excellent Marvel shows and excellent Doctor Who shows.
Yeah, Marvel was the first 10 years of Marvel was
fabulous. We would be like Christmas every day.
I never thought I'd see a character like sorry.
All right, I wanted to link up with the opinion poll I did last week on my channel. When obviously feedback from the fans was interesting. And now all I'll say is that because the show's there, I don't have to repeat it. But 60% thought Rtd was getting it wrong, right? Now that 60%, was just taking the figures up there from the opinion poll, so I was playing it straight. But the point was, all those who said continue, who got back to me with a comment, were actually saying reboot, change, sack RTD, get rid of Shooty, blah blah blah. So this led me to this one. So obviously Disney's subs have gone down. They weren't too happy about that. That's a possibility, they say. But I wanted to just test all your opinion on this, because somebody got back to me saying you need to do another opinion poll, Brendan, on the cancellation question. Now, if I ask the thread and I ask yourselves, right, out of these choices, where do you stand? And of course, you might say, well, actually, I'm very happy with the show. You know, I'm just going on the cancellation type front. Number one, do you think now we should cancel the show and just never bring it back because it's been wrecked, destroyed for so long? Two, cancel the show for a period, then bring it back after retconning or ditching the post-Capaldi era. So first one, cancel, don't bring it back. Second one, cancel the show for a period, and then everything after 2017 didn't happen. Three, continue the show with a new showrunner and writers, retconning some of the controversial aspects. I'm assuming timeless children, bi-generation, that sort of thing. Four, continue the show as it is. Everything's fine. Five, total reboot, start again, end of. So who wants to chew on that one?
I'll go if you want.
Go on then.
No, total reboot, guys. Basically, tie off this little universe. And if you like it, you know, I'm sorry I've been horribly negative. If you like it, that's absolutely great, but it's done. We've got 3 guys who've presided over this show for 20 years now. They've done their vision. That's great. I think they're out of ideas now. Tie it off. If you like it, if you want a song in Doctor Who, if you want all that, if you want the Doctor marrying whoever, and, you know, that's great. That's the show for you. But a bit like these great sci-fi sagas like Star Trek and things, you sort of like tie them off. And I think this needs tying off. And I think a good break, total reboot, and you literally clean the whole thing out. You go independent with it, and we get science fiction team writers in with some dramatists to bring those great ideas to life. And if you do nothing about this, you're just going to continue this nonsense. Yeah. And it's got this baggage now. It's like, do you remember the film The Mission, where Robert De Niro's dragging this huge bag of rubbish up the mountain and he cuts it free? You're never going to get rid of that baggage now. He's got multiple partners, multiple this, multiple, and it's been, you know, tie it off.
So Gary,
that's part of history.
So Gary, as you can see in the thread, as Neil is talking, and I appreciate that, so many people are saying the second option, cancel the show for a period, then bring it back after 2017 as if it didn't happen. Now, I resisted that choice, Gary, for ages, thinking, no, and me and Divine and Dragon, you may remember the show where we actually came up with alternative theories that you could include the timeless children, you could include various things, and how can you explain it? But I'm of a growing opinion that 2017 plus has so much has been damaged that maybe option 2 does look good. Where do you stand, Gary?
All right, I have to clarify something with you, Brendan, first. Does number 2 assume that any of the current production staff is still involved with it? I know that number 3 is getting rid of all the current production staff. Does number 2 presume that the current production people are still on it?
No, I would put it that way. Yeah, if you cancel the show for a period, you're going to lose RTD, Shooty, Bad Wolf.
Okay, I would do 2 then. I think it has to be rested, and I know that the fandom, you know, they still think, you know, they're still carrying the memories of, you know, the hiatus, you know, in the Colin Baker era, and say, well, we can't do it again. But here's the thing: it's not only about the content of the show; it's about the show's current perception from the public, and it's poisoned fruit right now. For the public, there's too much controversy, there's too much nonsense, not only of what the content of the show is, but what all of like RTD and Shooty are out there, the way they're promoting it. It's poisoned the show in the perception of the public. And you can have a great show with great content, but if the public, for whatever reason, doesn't want to tune in, all of the quality of the show is not going to matter. So I think you have to rest it and give the public a chance to forget about the last like 5 years, and B, like want to miss it again. I mean, give them the opportunity to miss it. But right now, it's the train wreck is still too fresh in people's minds. I don't think ending the current version, like for example, in May and then in November trying to bring it back again, that's too soon. People are still associating with
And
it.
this is-
So I think 2 will work. I actually even have a solution. Give me Capaldi for 15 minutes and I can retcon everything about the last 5 years. And here's how I do it. I would start with some character, not necessarily the new companion, coming into some kind of complex, some kind of lab or whatever. And they come upon Capaldi, who is on a table with one of the dream crabs from last Christmas stuck onto his face. He gets freed, and everything since then, from him regenerating and including Jody and Shooty, is all like the product of his nightmare because he has the dream crab on his face. And then you remove that, and now we're back to Capaldi. And he can regenerate at the end of that episode if he wants from the trauma or whatever. But just give me him for one episode, and that's how I would get rid of. I would still keep it in continuity, but I would get rid of all of the last 5 years. That's my solution.
So, Michelle, I'm in recent streams, I've been very controversial by actually just thinking out the box. And I think some fans are thinking I'm really into this. But one of the options I was saying was you rest the show. So I think every Doctor Who fan doesn't want number 1 because obviously that means it'll never come back. So a lot of people have now gone for the default, which is number 2, and just have your fingers crossed and hope time heals. But I'm also wanting Doctor Who on TV. So basically, that's why I came up with the remake option for a few years with an actor like Paul McGann doing some of the best of in the past. The trouble is, yes, I know producers nowadays will still have all the same woke agenda, so therefore there's a problem. It's a shame they can't just follow the scripts from the originals. It's just, I do worry, Michelle, about if you take Doctor Who off, there's no guarantee it's going to come back on. And as Gary was saying then, we might have to wait a very long time because there's a season 2, there's a Christmas special with a Silurian like a butler or whatever, and I think more damage will be done. Rogue might come back in a spin-off. People are speculating. And Michelle, by the time season 2 is finished, I think this would have to be off the air if you're going to do number 2 for way over a decade.
Yeah, and we're at the point where number 1 may be the only option. Because too much damage may be done to this beloved franchise. For a long time, I've always said I don't want number 1 to happen because, again, there is no guarantee that the show will ever come back. Right now, I'm kind of looking at a merging of number 2 to number 5, where we're going to have a dividing line between the clock, because when the show came back in 2005, it was kind of an extension of the classic era, where the Doctor was not the first Doctor. We're still acknowledging the past Doctors. We're almost going to have to almost end it and say, those were the 1 Doctors, and now we're going to start off in the new universe with the new, so total reboot. But the concept is there, the name is still there.
Yeah.
But the numbering system is, we're going back. I've always kind of said, and maybe this is just my fan fiction, is that this is not the same universe as the Doctor that we know and love. Because when Capaldi was regenerating, the TARDIS did kick Jodie out of the TARDIS. So we've always been in an alternate universe where that's not been the real Doctor. So that's just kind of the way I'm looking at it. We are on a very slippery slope that 1 likely will happen, and that's going to be number 1.
What does everyone think of this? Claude, good to see you, Michael. I have to ask, isn't it too late already? Is the damage so bad? And I have to say, Michael, this is roughly where I am at the moment. I just think
Yeah, I am too.
Sledgehammer TARDIS, Rogue, By Generation, Timeless Children, and there's a few things, Davros, retconned. Are we so far damaged that actually I think every Doctor Who fan, if they really don't like this, needs to actually sit down and go, hold on a minute. You can't retcon all of this in a narrative that will hold together. Plus, by the way, and I appreciate what Gary's saying, but if you think of it this way, a casual viewer is not going to want to watch an episode or two where we unravel the past. They want good stories and fan fiction trying to explain all the damage.
Yeah, but you can't ignore it.
You tie it off. You just tie it off. You accept that happened. That's that version of the show. And you kick it up. I honestly think if you give it 10 years and you bring back a fresh take, the TARDIS is there, you bring the Daleks as Cybermen, but you go back to the original series Bible, but you don't start and do, an Earthly Child again. You just start with an adventure. There's doctors there, and it's sci-fi, and it's at each great team of writers. It would be a very exciting show again, and you make no attempt to go back through all that.
My argument the other day is, if you want to push forward, the Doctor starts on their own. The Doctor's in space. The Doctor doesn't refer to anything to do with Time Lords, Gallifrey. We don't have the Master. We don't have anybody. Push forward. Start Doctor Who again in the reboot and just go forward.
It's like, right, can I ask you a question, right? Do you sit and watch the Peter Cushing movies, which I always enjoy, and you sit there and agonize over the fact this is not quite the same? No,
I adore those movies.
They're damn good films. So you just accept this is the Doctor as it is. Yeah. You do a similar thing. He's a space, he can be a Time Lord if you want, whatever you want. But I wouldn't even go for that. I would just have the Doctor in space, experiencing big concepts and dealing with that again. You get people on board on the adventure again, and you forget about who River Song is, who Amy Pond is, who all that is. You don't need it. It's bogged it down to the point of, and then now, if you keep it going, we could have a musical spring up at any time.
It's
just
And as Boomer Doug says, forget about canon. Exactly. Make good self-contained stories. Yes. And I would start with a Doctor on their own. Gary started with the Deadly Assassin. It broke the mold. Let's just get the Doctor established as the main character. Don't have the soap opera plot. So don't get bogged down with a companion's 18 and, she's
a damn charismatic actor.
None of that.
Well, really that's Rtd'S thing. If he's out, that probably wouldn't be part of it.
Yeah, so it's a hell of a debate. There's an awful lot going on, but my God, there's so much to unravel. And I do think the damage has been done. So to try and cheer you up, we'll be dead fast and concise on these ones. But Anita Dobson, bless, and I do like Anita Dobson. Doctor Who's Anita Dobson confirms another Mrs. Flood twist. Can you cope with another in season 15? So when we learn who she is, because as you know, Rtd'S making it up as he goes, she still adds another twist or a turn. Okay? And so what we can hear is this. At the end of the next series, you will know everything about Mrs. Flood. Well, hallelujah, because I know he said in the SFX magazine that he doesn't like leaving fans dangling, but he's done it this time. Even at the end of the next season, there's a line that she says, and I thought that's a little bit odd for her to say that at this point. So even at this point, she still adds another twist or turn. So you're not quite sure. You think she's one thing, but you don't know. She's always keeping a few things in her pocket. You never quite know where she's going. It's nice to create a bit of mystery. Is my panel still there? Are the threads still there? Are you really salivating at this one?
I love Brian May. I've met Brian May. He's one of my heroes in life, and I love, and I think he's a great example of a celebrity who does an awful lot of good work. And I'm sure Anita's lovely, but I just don't care.
Well, you don't care, so let's have a
RTD. You strung me along all last season, and I was waiting for the payoff on Ruby's story, and you blinked that up. I could care less right now.
Yeah.
Because you messed one mystery up. Oh, you're going to get it right the next time? No. You fool me once, shame on me. Fool me, fool on you. Shame me twice, fool on me. No.
And Michelle, do you get the vibes? When you saw her at the end of season 1, when she's on the rooftop and she's a bit Mary Poppins-ish, but with a a Romana-esque Mary Tam outfit. So all the fans are thinking different codes. But I just thought she's a bit like Missy. We're going to have this remember when Missy, first of all, seemed to be in this alternative place and we just got little scenes with her and we know where we ended up. I really don't want another Missy kind of character, a fantasy character. They say she's the god of storytelling, possibly. People are guessing. I don't think we want to be there. As Neil said ages ago, sci-fi concept, not fantasy at the moment. Can we get back? We've had fantasy, Toymaker, Sledgehammer TARDIS. Can we now have a bit more gritty Christopher H. Bidmead style Doctor Who?
Honestly,
we need something to aim this.
I mean, personally, I'm more concerned about whether Ruby Zan is ever going to get her cup of tea than I am who Mrs. Flood is. I mean, Neil had it right. I could not care less. That quote about, oh, by next season, you know, we're going to know. My question would be, why do you assume I even care?
This is not going to attract new viewers. I'm sorry. I just don't believe it is in any shape or form.
You strung us along for a full season that we were going to get a really good, you know, and I kept saying, hey guys, I think this is going to, you know, we have to watch it all in tandem. We know, let's see what the ending's got to do. He's got to stick the landing. He's got to stick the landing. I thought he was sticking it in the part 1 of the special of the finale. He blew it in the last one. Absolutely blew it.
Brendan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there was a week that went by during the time when we were doing our weekly reviews of the season where we couldn't spot at least one thing that RTD had either ripped off from himself or from Moffat or from Classic. I've said it before a million times. I've said it before a million times. I'll say it again. RTD, in my opinion, is creatively out of gas.
Yeah,
there hasn't been a single episode, even including, and I'm going back to the Children in Need Walking Davros special. There hasn't been a single episode that really showed me that he has something new and different to bring to this series. It's all the Emperor's New Clothes. All he can do is lift. I mean, I actually think that next season we'll probably get, you know, the Master coming back as a wombat sitting on top of the TARDIS jukebox, you know, in the great tradition of Sutek. So
I just don't think sorry, I mean, artists in general, right? If you look at, say Mike Oldfield's a good example, you know. I love Mike Oldfield, and I got all of his stuff pretty much, but he's on repeat now, bless him. It's Tubular Bells again and again and again. And artists do peak. Generally, they peak. The greatest artists, you think of Dali, people like this, they go on repeat eventually. And that's no disrespect to what they've done. And without doubt, Russell Davies done some amazing work. But this is now on repeat, and he's done, and we need to just move on. And old Doctor Who, Classic Who, you think about how many production teams happened in 20 years, because it was all the better for it, you know. And you can prefer some and not the other, but ultimately it kept refreshing, and God needs a refresh desperately now. But
it also reminds me that, and nothing against Anita Dobson, she's just doing the role and she's excited by it.
Yeah,
and I'm
absolutely.
pleased for her. But when
she's
says
delivering what she's been scripted to do.
But when she says you don't know everything, even at the end of the next series, there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I'm thinking, do you know why there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that? And there's still a bit of mystery at the end, Anita Dobson. She probably wouldn't think this. It's because RTD is making it up as he goes along. It's not a character that's been planned out. That's why. He said, I think in that Imagine documentary when he was with Alan Yentob way back in November, he said, he doesn't know what the character is yet. And we know from the writer's tale that he didn't know what the 4 knocks was. He thought it through, and in that case, he made it work. But, you know, a lot of what he does is he sows the seed, and he hasn't thought it through. He just hopes that we're all salivating. I think Anita Dobson's Mrs. Flood, he didn't know who she was. He just thought, I'll sprinkle her there. He's added a bit now because he knows he can't have us kind of hanging around forever. And by the end of season 2, there's a mysterious, enigmatic line, and again, she's not fully the real deal.
My prediction is that going off the assumption that RTD has nothing new to bring to the table. All he can do is retreads. I'm going to call that she's going to turn out to be the Ronnie. After all of the false claims from the last 40 years, every time a new female character has showed up in Doctor Who, the fans go crazy and go, she's the Ronnie, that's the Ronnie. And it's never been. I think because RTD is so burned out right now, I think that it's going to be.
And let's be honest, if that does happen, Gary, even that, it's like, right, okay, great, brilliant.
Yeah, well done. Yeah.
It's like it's not.
Yeah, what's the sound of one hand? What's the sound of one hand clapping, Russell?
Yeah. Well, there you go. But maybe we're all wrong, Gary and Michelle and Neil, because Ncuti Gatwa won Best Actor Award at the BAFTAs, the Welsh BAFTAs. And so basically, maybe we just died in the wool, touching grass types of Doctor Who. We're missing the point of.
Brendan, you are doing some expert trolling of the panel today. I got to tell you.
Can I just say, Graham Dawson in the thread, Chris Squire was an amazing bass player. Saw him about 10 times. I agree. Sorry, that was just a little one there for Graham Dawson. Thank you.
So, what do you reckon, Gary, Michelle, Neil? I mean, okay.
Best Actor Award at the BAFTA. If BAFTA stands for Bad Actor Faking Tears Always, then yeah, I guess he deserves that prize.
I don't know what it was for. I mean, okay, it is the Welsh BAFTAs. So for those abroad, I think the categories and all the rest of it, there weren't that many nominees because it has to be made in BBC Wales and any other Welsh production. It's mostly BBC because there wasn't ITV and all that. So basically, you've got a very, very limited field. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying anything about Ncuti Gatwa. What I'm saying is the Doctor characters, Gary was saying, what's the Doctor really done? Millie Gibson and Ruby Sunday, the classic, Rtd'S more obsessed with the companion-centric stories. I just think he's been indecisive and paralyzed as a character. He's thumped a wall. In Dot and Bubble, he salivated and shouted and frothed at the mouth, but that was only for a moment. What else has he done? I don't know where's the great performance. BAFTA.
Well, he did that. He did that dance number in the Goblins episode.
Oh, and he sang. Oh, he's like the new Roy Castle. He's the new Bruce Forsyth. Oh, wow.
Do you know? All I get the impression is that I haven't really watched it. I couldn't tolerate it for very long, and so I'm sorry I'm not being very useful at this bit. But from what I gather, he's playing an incarnation of his other role. That's what people have generally said. From what I've gathered, would that be an accurate statement?
He's been playing himself, and I think it's a disservice because I would love to see him play someone besides himself.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm getting the impression.
I think
what would he actually?
Like a good director, a good director, producer, script, and an acting coach. This guy can knock it. He could be really good.
Yeah. The snag, Michelle, is I enjoyed the first 3 series of Sex Education, and obviously once he was given the role, I watched them. I hadn't seen them. So I came out of curiosity and interest. When I've started watching series 4 of Sex Education, which obviously was made just before he was the Doctor, and as you know, he was delayed, the scheduling wise. Mm-hmm. His character in series 4 seems to be much more camped up than even before, and more comedic. And there's an element of me going, oh my God, he's not too dissimilar from how I've seen him presented in season 1. I have to say,
I just thought that whole thing where he was introduced in his underpants was absolutely just so far off the mark, and it didn't do him any good. I think it was just. No. It was clearly just like, eye porn, really, wasn't it? I mean, it was just like, we've got a young, fit guy. Let's get his kicks off. It was just ridiculous. It was just, there was no dignity to it. And I just think from that off, it was like, it's almost like he's a clothes horse. He's a model. It's not about, there's no depth there from what I can see.
Was this award, Brendan? Was this award like, it says best actor? Was that best actor in general, or like best actor who debuted by springing out of the groin of another actor?
Yeah, it's very rare.
What was the actual award?
I know. Well, it came after the award on best dog sat on a police box award. And Sutek won that one. Yes. I mean, it was like very niche. I know, very, very niche. And I agree. It's a small field. well done to Shooty. I mean, you know, you're an actor, you win an award. I'm get it on the shelf. Well done, but it doesn't tell us the series is doing very well. Thank
We're
you.
Doctor
for-
Who fans. We want the show to do well. We want to love the Doctors.
Yep.
I want to
heartbreaking.
I want to hear that he's been cast in the Ken spinoff from Barbie, and he's going to go off to Hollywood and film that for a few years.
Yeah. Well, exactly. We'll end on that thought. So thank you, all of you. Thank you. Michelle, do you want to give another shout out before I come to Neil Cole about his museum and book? Your book is going very well, and it is Halloween after all. So go on, give it another shout out.
Yes, so Han Fregsberg, Amazon.com, and it's also in the UK. So learn about one of the most historic cities in Virginia.
And you are doing very well in the charts, actually, aren't you?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and well deserved. How Michelle does this? She streams, she writes the book, and she's also got a job in, where is it again?
The Mary Washington House. I'm the manager in Fregsburg, Virginia. It is a 1759 building. It is the home of George Washington's mother.
There you go.
Wow.
I mean, busy lady, but well done, well done. Neil, obviously, we've been showing your book. We have shown a bit of your museum, of course, in your video clips. But do you want to give, obviously, a shout out for that as well?
Well, basically, I know I produced a book. It's taken me 2 years to write and draw it. I've hand illustrated it. I've had people from all over the world have contributed pictures. The idea being one object from each story of Patrick Troughton's 66 to 69 stories.
Ooh.
And I've got some incredible items in there, from Ice Warrior claws to good. I ended up finding 3 Cybermen helmets from Tomb, from different sources all over the world. It's been a wonderful journey. Anyway, if you fancy reading that, you can get it you can either get it in Galaxy 4 online. Galaxy 4 supported me wonderfully. A lovely little shop in London, Blake's Heaven, has it, Grant Holdsworth shop.
Oh, that's
great.
And
also you can also get it on by just email the museum at classicscifimuseum@gmail.com, and we'll send you one through the post. It's on my website on Classic Museum, Museum of Classic Sci-Fi.com. You can get it there, and it was selling out now, actually, which is lovely, but we've got a box left, so if you want one, let us know. And I'm doing volume 2 now, starting now.
Well, there you go, everyone. And so, and what more is there to say? We've had monsters, we've had scares, we've had stories that broke the mold.
I guess I'm chopped liver. I'm not doing anything. I'm not writing any books or whatever. So you don't even ask me.
How
about the history of Star Trek caps?
There you go.
History of Star Trek caps.
If anybody wants to contact me,
I pull out my hand violin.
If anybody wants to contact me, you can contact me on Facebook. I'll respond as soon as I get back from touching grass.
Yeah. Hay fever.
Which is legal in most U.S. states now.
That's
well, everybody, have a good night. Thank you for your support. See you later, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Duggan.